Friday. We'll be off, as well as our entire team. We're going to give them this Good Friday day off, as well as Resurrection Weekend, of course. They'll be running some of our best of programming. So tomorrow night, we'll have a best of show right here. But we are here with you tonight with a brand new show, and that includes Patrick Wood. We want to talk about time travel, space travel. You remember the old beam me up Scotty, and his body kind of dissolves and disappears, and he reappears somewhere else? We've got two clips. I think I played one for you last week. A former general with Space Force saying we can transport you anywhere in the world in 1 hour. What? It has to do with energy and whatnot. Now we've got a guy that is heading up one of these scientific offices or something, we'll find out tonight, in the White House, saying something similar to this. What is this all about? Is this even possible? Is it reality? What's going on? I want to talk to Patrick Wood about that. And then robot. There's a lot of talk about robots. And could there be coming a major battle between the technocrats and the communists? A battle between the technocrat and the communists. We'll explain why that battle may indeed be coming. I also want to talk to Dr. Thorpe tonight. A growing problem. I know someone that did not get the COVID shot, but they had to have blood, had to have a lot of it in a medical emergency. And within a few weeks, suffered major adverse reactions and almost died at least three times. But one of the doctors later said, I think it may have been some tainted blood. This is a growing problem. Dr. Thorpe has been warning about this for over 2 years now. We're going to talk about that. We're going to talk about his book, which is damaging, it's about the COVID shot and giving it to mothers and pregnant mothers and killing so many. We're going to talk about several things related to the health field. The FDA, they claim that they're going to be moving leaders of the big pharma out of the review process. They can sit on the sidelines and watch like everybody else. See what Dr. Thorpe thinks about that. And let's also talk about all of the people having these manic meltdowns, because I mentioned it tonight in the Worldview Report. Dr. Thorpe, Dr. McCullough, Peter Breggin, they did a big study on this. All these people having medical meltdowns, manic meltdowns, stripping off their clothes in airports and whatnot, homicidal, suicidal thoughts and tendencies, violent behavior. We're going to get into all that tonight with Dr. Thorpe, which seems to be a growing trend. Then David Pine. Apparently, there are two groups of people talking into the ear of Donald Trump. One saying, bomb, bomb, bomb Iran. That's not the Beach Boys song. Logan doesn't even know that song. Probably do you, Logan? You cannot be up here now. Go away. Go away. Go away. It's my show. It's not the Dolly show. Bomb, bomb Iran is what some are saying in his ear. And then, although she was a big hit, you were a big hit the other night. I have to admit, we're getting a lot of text, people talking about you. Yeah, people love you. You're very lovable. That's why. And then, I don't want to lick my face. Then we have other people talking into Trump's ear. Thank you. You're sweet. I know you love me. Telling him, don't bomb Iran. And apparently that includes Pete Hegseth, Susie Wiles, the chief of staff, Tulsi Gabbard, are saying, don't bomb Iran. We need to work this out, trying to avoid war. We'll get into that tonight with David Pine. And then Dr. Lana joins us. Let me ask you this. Have you ever heard of this? And guys, I know you don't get this, okay? We all agree. There's male, there's female. Men don't have babies, and men don't have periods, right? They don't have cycles. But you may have a daughter or a wife that has issues, and you can't really figure out what they are, and they run to get on a psychotropic drug. Well, maybe that's not the issue at all. Maybe the issue is what's called, oh boy, these dogs are knocking my little flimsy table over. Maybe this is what's called premenstrual dysphoric disorder. Is that what it is? Have you ever heard of that, folks? It's called PMDD. And guess what happens with people that get that? Anxiety, panic attack, skin rashes, hot flashes. They have all kinds of symptoms. Dizziness, fatigue, joint pain, headaches, all kinds of problems. And of course, Some of them may run to a doctor who then puts them on a psychotropic when they don't need to be on one. They're not going crazy. They don't necessarily need a psychotropic, but they do have a real condition called PMDD. Have you ever heard of that? We're going to talk about that with Dr. Lana tonight, along with other things in our health update. Okay, so a lot to get to. Now, before we do, we made a big announcement the other night. We're going to Washington, D.C. the first week of May. We have White House passes as part of the press. Our press passes have been approved. And the week of May 5th through the 9th, we're allowed to go to the White House and broadcast out in front of the White House. If there's a press briefing, we're going to be allowed to go into the press briefing. We have some interviews and press passes to go in and set up our cameras and lights and everything on the House side and do interviews with members of the House of Representatives. On the Senate side, we've already got some interviews set up with some U.S. senators. We have some great passes. We've filled out all the paperwork. We paid the $900 to have the right permits with the Park Service to film at the Lincoln Memorial, the Jefferson Memorial, Iwo Jima, the Vietnam Memorial Wall, World War II Memorial. We're going to do a lot of great historic programs in addition to interviews. Now, the interviews are great, but eventually those time out. They get old, right? But we're going to do a lot of historical stuff, and that won't be dated. We're going to be trying to do some more history programming, particularly so on the weekends. We can bring you some great programming about America, particularly as we go into the 250th anniversary of America. So we're excited. Not going to be a cheap trip. We got a motor coach and a driver. We're going to bring our team with us, includes Logan, of course, and Michael Nini and others, and film for a week. And we need your support. If you want to see our network grow, if you'd like to see our network do more of these kind of specials and produce these specials for you to enjoy, then we need your support. So a couple ways you can support us. Let's go over there before we get to our first interview with Patrick Wood. Here we go. worldviewtube.com/sponsors, worldviewtube.com/sponsors. Now, you know I take the Bella Grace every day. So many of you do. And Melissa informed me today that sales are really, really going well. So we're growing, either that, which means we have new listeners, or more of our alumni are jumping on board. A lady at the, I think I told you at the rally Tuesday night said to me as I was signing her book, your hair growth is more noticeable in person than it is on television. I said, well, that's great to hear. I'm glad to have they actually took a picture of me on the stage speaking from behind. And to my amazement, there's that thinning bald spot is covered up. Did you notice that, Logan? That thinning bald spot's covered up. Well, the only thing I can attribute that to is Bella Grace with the collagen, with the peptides cut short so your body actually digests it. So I love my Bella Grace. I take it every day, all the great health benefits, 80 clinical trials behind it. Melissa loves the skincare. All right, she loves that. Check that out, ladies. The Bella Trim, that's an all-natural, plant-based supplement for weight management. Takes on the stubborn belly fat. Apparently sales for that are going up too. I guess everybody's getting ready for the summer, right? Also has a lot of benefits, cardiac health. Restorative sleep. Melissa likes to take 2 of the gummies, all natural, help her stay asleep. So check that out. That's melissahousebg.com, melissahousebg.com. Let's go back to worldviewtube.com/sponsors. What else do we have here, Logan? Oh, the Swish for Life, the Gatatana. That is so vital for detoxing your cells. Over 162,000 studies on Gatatana. This is not a joke, folks. 162,000 studies, okay, on Gatatana. And some studies show it not only removes toxins from your cells, but it can remove mercury from your brain, helping prevent Alzheimer's, dementia, and Parkinson's. So check that out, swishforlife.com, or you'll find the link at worldviewtube.com/sponsors. The water purifier, making sure you're drinking good water. I mean, you don't want cancer, do you? Well, then I would suggest you not drink toxins. That's common sense, right? Don't drink pesticides. Don't drink bacteria. Don't drink fluoride, other harmful toxins. Get a super powerful water filter. I have this one right under my kitchen sink. That's what we drink. This is the water I give Dolly. Okay. I also have one for my shower. This one on the bottom right. That's in my shower. So again, check this out, worldviewwater.net. They actually add oxygen and other things like magnesium to the water. Check it out at worldviewwater.net, worldviewwater.net. Again, worldviewwater.net. And let's see, what else do I want to mention real quick? I guess that's probably about it for now. All right. Worldviewtube.com/sponsors, worldviewtube.com/sponsors. All right, joining me now is Patrick Wood to talk about technology that permits us to manipulate time and space. Now, I've heard this week twice from two different people. Earlier in the week, I played a clip from Space Force Stephen Quast, United States Air Force General. He was speaking at Hillsdale College. Listen to what he had to say before we bring Patrick Wood on. Listen to this.
The seed corn of all development, all growth, all survival, energy. So energy, transportation, information, and manufacturing, these are the things that change humanity, that will change world power, and they are descending upon us in ways that are very unique. The technology is on the engineering benches today, but most Americans and most in Congress have not had time to really look deeply at what's going on here. But I've had the benefit of 33 years of studying and becoming friends with these engineers and these scientists. This technology can be built today with technology that is not developmental to deliver any human being from any place on planet Earth to any other place in less than an hour. To deliver Wi-Fi from space where you never need a cell tower to connect. To deliver energy from space where you never have to plug your phone in and it trickle charges. And you can use that energy over time. It can be applied to cars, to houses. The technology of Edison and Tesla that we live with in our energy environment, our paradigm today, is expensive, it's dangerous, and it's wasteful. Plug it into the wall, but yet that's what we all do because we are used to paradigm. The power of space will change world power forever. And it doesn't have to be a big country to do it. It can be a small island country, let's say New Zealand. Because the technology, if optimized, can change world power, and there's nothing you can do if you don't have that power. The nature of power. You either have it and your values rule, or you do not have it and you must submit. We see that play out again and again in history, and it's playing out now. But we get trapped.
Wow. I played that for you guys the other day, and then today I saw this article. Here we go. Michael Karatsios. Our technologies permit us to manipulate time and space. And there he is standing next to the president. We got a clip by him as well. Let's bring on Patrick Wood, get his response from the retired Air Force general with Space Force. Patrick, what do you make of all this? I played the other day and I said, I have no idea what he's talking about. I don't know what, if this is really reality or it seems like Star Trek, beam me up, Scotty. That's what we saw in Star Trek, wasn't it? Beam me up, Scotty, and he kind of dissolves and boom, pops back up in the Star Trek spaceship where he went down to some planet. What do you think they really have this capability?
I don't think they do, honestly. I think they're whatever he's saying is he's smoking something. I tell you. But you see, both of these people, they're invested in the technology world, for one thing. They're kind of saying the same thing. I think Kratzius has articulated more than the general. In other words, Kratzius says it outright. Our technology permit us to manipulate time and space, period, and end of subject. This is just crazy talk, in my opinion. And I don't know what he's doing at this point. However, I have to say, here's another technocrat in our government at a high level who's sponsored by Peter Thiel in the first place. He has a long history. We'll cover that in a minute, I'm sure. But he has a long history with Peter Thiel, and anything he says at this point has to be analyzed to the max, because Peter Thiel's philosophy is, in my opinion, is completely cracked at this point. Especially he's listening to people like
exactly. Well, tell me, who is Michael Kratsius? Who is he? Where's he come from? What's his background? What's his training in? Is he serving in the administration?
He is, actually. He's the 13th director of the White House Office of Science and Technology Policy. That's a position that has to be confirmed by the Senate, so it's kind of a cabinet level position. He's also the science advisor to the president. Period. And in other words, he sits right next to the president on to feed him policies like time and space business here, I guess. But you can't make this stuff up. When I discovered his relationship with Peter Thiel, it just blew me away. This guy is not just on the outskirts of Peter Thiel's world. No, he's on the inside of it. At one point in time, he was chief of staff for Peter Thiel, in charge of his business operations and helping to coordinate all of his ventures. This guy was in the middle of the whole thing. So he's considered a Thiel protege in the same sense that J.D. Vance was. And there's other politicians, of course. We have one in Arizona. He lost his race, but nevertheless, we know that Peter Thiel bankrolled J.D. Vance in the first place to get his Senate seat in Ohio, which then springboarded him forward to be chosen as the vice president in this election.
Right.
I'll tell you what.
Well, let's go to this
we're in big
clip,
trouble
because
here.
this is. Listen to this gentleman here talking about, well, very similar to what we just heard the retired sports general with Space Force say. Listen to this.
Vision. We've lowered our sights. We are capable of so much more. Our technologies permit us to manipulate time and space. They leave distance annihilated, cause things to grow and improve productivity. As Vice President Vance said in a recent speech, the tradition of American innovation has been one of increasing the capacities of America's workers, of extending human ability so that more people can do more and more meaningful work. But unrestricted immigration and reliance on cheap labor, both domestically and offshore, has been a substitute for improving the productivity with technology. We can build in new ways that let us do more with less, or we can borrow from the future. We have chosen to borrow from that future again and again. Our choice as a civilization is technology or debt, and we have chosen debt. Today, we choose a better way. Our first assignment is to secure America's preeminence in critical and emerging technologies. This administration will ensure that our nation remains the leader in the industries of the future, with a strategy of both promotion and protection, protecting our greatest assets and promoting our greatest innovators. To the degree it even tried to accomplish this, the Biden administration failed on its own terms, led by a spirit of fear rather than promise. The old regime.
Okay, so there we go. Pretty much the same thing the general was saying, right?
Seems to be.
I mean, that's the full clip, right? Did I play it all?
I think so. Yeah, you got the important stuff for sure. Mm-hmm. So here you have a guy who's been active since the first Trump administration. I didn't know who Kratsius was back in the first administration, but he was the guy that was sitting behind the president when the first executive orders were created for digital technology. This is the guy that was responsible for it. Looking backward, we see his name there. And his career was focused on advancing national strategies in artificial intelligence, quantum information science, 5G, and other emerging technologies. He's credited as the architect of the American AI Initiative, and he led the U.S. response to technological challenges during, catch this, during the COVID-19 pandemic. Okay, so who was orchestrating the digital transformation when the COVID hit? It was Cratius. This guy's been kind of a sleeper in a sense. He just got slipped in there, and we know who he is now, but nobody had a clue that he was associated with Peter Thiel in that day. I didn't see it anyway.
Why are these guys saying this? I mean, why would you be promoting this Star Trek, beam me up, Scotty, we can transport you anywhere in an hour concept? Why would they be out there saying that if they don't have the technology? Doesn't that just make them look foolish?
Whatever he thinks he has, I don't know what he's thinking, but I don't know how anybody could know, but whatever he's thinking in his brain, he's deceiving himself, I think, because there's no way that any mortal man is going to bend time or space. That's left up to God to do that sort of thing, not man, for sure. So whatever he's looking at right at this point, maybe he's looking at CERN or something. They've been talking about that for a long time, but never cracked it. What is that? Well, CERN's that crazy nuclear accelerator in Switzerland, and that's that they talk about crashing atoms into each other and analyzing the parts that come out of it. The nuclear physicists are all there to examine what goes on when the atoms are smashed apart. Well, CERN has never produced any actionable technology in its history. It's all theoretical stuff. In other words, they dream something up. Oh, let's go do this. Let's see if this will work or that work. And they've never had anything at this point come out of it. Now they want to completely do the thing over, build a better one, a bigger one, and they're sure now. Oh, we're going to get it now because we have a more acceleration, more gadgets or whatever. And they're on like a wild goose chase at this point. So I don't know. I do know, however, these technocrats as a class of people at this point, they're really off the wall compared to the way we think. They're off the wall, Brandon. This is the most dangerous thing that we could possibly have people like this in charge of our government. This is crazy talk. We don't want somebody like this. And he's not a flat earther, okay? But he might as well be at this point because he can't think clearly. And here's the guy that's in charge of our technology policy going forward. All of the AI that's coming into government now, all of the talk about cryptocurrencies and reforming the monetary system of the world. This is all coming from the technocrat movement, not from the populist movement. It's coming through all these technocrats, like Cratius, David Sachs, Elon Musk, etc.
So we'll keep an eye on this.
Yes.
All right, let's keep an eye on this. Weird. Okay, I want to go to another topic. You have a article out at technocracy.news. Here it is. Whence chip implants from brain Bluetooth to full robo cop. Okay. Now, you have embedded a link in here. I want to go to it because when I look at this, initially I'm thinking, this is a joke. This has got to be a joke. But I don't think it is. I mean, you're putting it in here like it's seriously happening. Has Kawasaki, have they developed a four-legged robot that humans can ride? I have a video to show you. But this is not AI. I mean, they're actually got this thing developed. Is that right?
Yes, they do. Yeah.
Okay.
Nothing you can say. Yeah, they're harnessing robotics for any conceivable thing you can imagine, including dogs, mechanical robot horses, robot every carry your backpack, you name it, make your coffee, cook your meals, work and
wow.
go off to work in the factory, and then come back and cook your meal for you at dinner time. For every conceivable.
Well, watch this
purpose.
video because this is a weird video. Watch this, folks. Here we go. That's really...
The Kawasaki Corleo is a bold concept that redefines what off-road exploration could look like in 2050 through zero emissions, intelligent design, and movement more animal than machine. Unveiled at the Kansai International Expo in Osaka, Corleo is unlike anything you've seen before. Built on a four-legged robotic frame and inspired by both motorcycle mechanics and advanced robotics, this hydrogen-powered machine is made for serious all-terrain action. Think of it as a futuristic horse, or a panther, with the agility to match. Each of Corleo's legs ends in a flexible rubber hoof, offering superior grip across gravel, grass, and rocks. Instead of handlebars, riders control Corleo with natural body movements, lean forward or shift your weight, and the robot responds intuitively. The ride is smooth and silent, thanks to a 150 cubic centimeters hydrogen engine that powers electric motors in each leg. A built-in display shows real-time data like your route, hydrogen levels, and posture. And at night, Corleo projects guiding markers directly onto the terrain to help you navigate tricky paths. Whether you're climbing steep trails or cruising through open landscapes, Corleo blends human instinct with machine intelligence in a truly groundbreaking way. Corleo represents a potential path for 2050, where traditional off-road motorcycles might be replaced by robotic trail companions like this. Now it's your turn. What do you think about the new Kawasaki Corleo? Share your thoughts in the comments. And if you enjoyed the video, don't forget to hit the like button and subscribe to the channel.
Okay, so it's not coming until 2050, and now that's got to be AI. That wasn't real footage. So they're trying to prime you for that coming in 2050. All right, great. Let's wait around for that. I don't know.
Don't worry. It'll come. It'll come much sooner than that.
Faster?
I'm sure.
Okay, that's what I was going to get to. How is it that's going to take that long to get to that if the technology is so great, so here on the cutting edge, and it's going to take that long? So you don't think it'll take that long? You think this is real?
I don't. It's certainly on the drawing board for sure, but we have to remember at this point there are so many. There's a multitude of vendors that are perfecting humanoid robots right now, including Tesla with their robot, and there's other companies just like that. All of these companies, by the way, in a neck and neck race to be the first to release a product. So this year, in 2025, all of these companies are releasing prototype models, just like the ones they're going to produce, but they're going to release them by the end of this year, probably maybe in the third quarter, to let people have them in their house, and factories, whatever, and test them out. And they're scheduled for full production in first quarter 2026. There you go. This is, this is not me saying this. This is industry statements. They've all said the same thing. They're producing their prototypes right now to hit the streets, and I will predict, and by a year from now, you will see robots walking on the streets of major cities, maybe minor cities as well, and in homes and factories, and it'll be just the first. That'll be the first wave. After that, Elon Musk, he says this is going to be a multi-trillion-dollar industry, probably the biggest in the world's ever seen. And he's actually thinking about shutting down his car company and making robots exclusively. Oh,
really?
This is going to be a big deal. So, I mean, this is the wave of the future at this point.
He clearly thinks the market share is for robots, not cars.
Yes.
His electric cars. That's where the money's going to be. Exactly.
And people are getting really tired of EVs at this point anyway. This market could just collapse at any time. It probably will.
And nobody would care.
Who cares? But Elon Musk is he's a grandstander for sure, and he understands where markets are going and stuff. He's going to build a product that will be suitable for public consumption and acceptance.
Mm-hmm. Here's one robot video. This is, again, watch how this thing catches its balance. I don't think this is AI. I think this one here is the real deal. Here we go.
Yep. Humanoid robots are so hot right now. With several companies in fierce competition, including titans of tech, we're exploring what the future could hold for these marching metallic mechanisms made in our image. Let's get into it. This year, Boston Dynamics introduced an all-new, all-electric Atlas, finally retiring its iconic acrobatic hydraulic Atlas, now called HD Atlas. Boston Dynamics says this new robot is a key stepping stone in the road to commercializing this technology. The all-new Atlas is capable of moving in what I would call superhuman ways, which is one thing I suspect we'll be seeing more of as humanoid robotics technology advances. Just because these robots are shaped like humans, doing jobs traditionally performed by humans, and operating in environments made for humans, doesn't mean they have to be limited in the same way as human beings are limited. For example, if it's more efficient to turn your torso and legs in different directions, I think we'll see robots doing that. It's also an eye-catching way for companies to prove their capabilities and make them stand out from the competition. We can see this clearly in the Unitree G1, a smaller, more affordable humanoid robot starting at $16,000 that folds up to less than 3 feet in size, presumably for things like storage and shipping. Unitree is a Chinese company that distinguishes itself in the crowded field of robotics by producing more affordable robots on both 2 and 4 legs. Other companies stand apart from the crowd by targeting the home as opposed to the warehouse. 1X's latest humanoid robot, Neo, is shown in its announcement video with its arm around a person. That's something we don't see often from robotics companies, perhaps attempting to portray the robot as something that can be trusted as a home helper. Then there's the issue of autonomy. To be truly useful, robots will have to be able to learn new skills with as little help as possible, perhaps by observation and mimicry, learning and simulation, teleoperation, or some combination. Some companies are clearly labeling their demos autonomous or fully autonomous, while others are less upfront about the degree of human assistance behind the scenes. Tesla's Optimus robot was performing tasks at the company's We Robot event, but was reportedly not working autonomously, perhaps due to the low light and crowded environment. The company later shared video of its robots autonomously performing similar tasks in a controlled lab environment. If a company isn't telling you clearly that what you're seeing is autonomous, autonomy should never be assumed. A lot can be hidden behind that shiny robotic front. Another big question I'll be asking in 2025 is what is the best approach to actually building robots that work? We've already seen several robotics companies partnering up with companies like NVIDIA and OpenAI, using their hardware and software as a jumping off point to get their robots talking, learning, and performing tasks faster than if each company had to do it all from scratch. At the same time, you've got a company like Tesla that basically said, hey, the self-driving we're developing for our cars, is kind of like what you need to control a humanoid robot. So instead of starting from scratch, they took advantage of all the data, hardware, and AI they were already developing to put it to work in a new form factor with Optimus. We also saw Boston Dynamics announce a deal with Toyota Research Institute, which has been working to develop a large behavior model, similar to a large language model, that generates human-like behaviors instead of text. Toyota Research Institute has also been working on developing self-driving and self-drifting cars. It'll be interesting to watch if more partnerships emerge between the self-driving space and the humanoid robotic space. So, I'm expecting more feats of hypermobility, more industry partnerships, and more companies seeking to distinguish themselves from the army of humanoid robots marching into the future. How do you feel about humanoid robots?
Okay, so this is further along than I thought it was. That video is pretty cutting edge there. I didn't realize those robots could do that much right now. That's pretty remarkable. So when you say expect to see some of this stuff in the next year, and now I know why you just said that, having found this video while you were talking.
Exactly. So it's going to be here. Let me make a prediction too. This is not a profit type of prediction. I'm just telling you a trend that I see here. You're going to see when these robots get into society and they start taking jobs away from people, like service jobs and carpenters and you name it, auto, manufacturing jobs, whatever. You're going to see a backlash from American labor like you've never seen before. I could see a day when there's piles of junk robots who have been literally destroyed by the workers who are going to rebel against this whole movement of robots taking over society. I'm just saying, I'm not going to do it myself.
You know what just came to my mind? No, I know you're not going to do it. You know what just came to my mind? Workers of the world unite.
Yes.
Workers of the world unite.
Yes.
We've got to unite up against these globalists, the transhumanists who are taking our jobs and putting us into some dystopian society run by robots under their control and command. Now, what I see potentially here with this is many people being attracted to communism. Workers of the world unite. You got the unions, the proletariat, the workers uniting against big government and big business, which is, communitarianism, technocracy. You could see a revival of communism among people because the communists take advantage of this to say, look at how the evil corporatists and the government, technocrats, and the greedy capitalists have conspired to put you out of work, and now want to dehumanize you and just send you a paycheck, which of course I thought was the goal of the communists, really was that everybody's work be treated with equal value, whether a doctor or a dish digger, and everybody gets paid the same. But then when it actually comes to reality, hey, we're going to send everybody a check, you can sit at home and watch the robots do it. Watch the communists have a fit. I mean, it's like you should be saying, isn't this what you guys always wanted? But watch the communists use it to exploit and create that maybe a new era of following communism. What do you make of that?
It could be. I'll say this again. The technocrats and the communists in the 1930s and 40s hate each other. They hated each other with a passion. There was good reasons for it. So
there's already a historical platform for those two groups to fight and the communists to pour out into the streets. I mean, watch for it, folks. Logan, mark it down in a year or two when we play a video, because the streets are filled with people protesting over robots having taken their jobs. Because we just predicted that tonight, which I guess isn't too hard to predict. But what we're predicting is the philosophies behind it. The communist versus the technocrat. Right, Roger?
Yeah.
I mean, Patrick?
It'll be interesting. You're right. Yeah, it could happen that way. And the reason that the communists hated the technocrats back in that day was they realized that technocrats were going to remove man from the equation altogether. In other words, they were going to remove the classes of people and turn everything into a scientific dictatorship. there would be there'd be no politics at all. And they saw that as a threat. Hey, you can't do that. We have to have classes to work with. We have to have people to rebel against this or that or the other. And they saw the handwriting on the wall at that point, and they just freaked out. They wrote several articles. I got them on my disk here. And you read these articles, I say, you know what? These people really understood technocracy back then, because they saw this whole business of mechanistic philosophy didn't suit them at all.
And wait, I want to make it real clear. It didn't suit them because they can't control the technology per se. They can try to control the masses through propaganda, community organizing, right?
Yes.
But
yes.
how
if
do
you
they
don't have
control
people,
the
you can't do
robot?
it.
Right. How do they control the robots? How do they control the technology for their agenda? How do they call a strike? Hey, we're not getting what we want. All the robots, get on the picket line and strike. They don't have the controls, right? The technocrats have the controls, right? So without the people, without the, quote, power of the people, and power to the people never meant to the masses. Power to the people meant to those up top who were running the masses for their agenda. That's who the wealth and the power went to. But they needed the people at the lower level. That's the communist strategy. Pressure from above, pressure from below, right? Mm-hmm. Pressure from above, the elite, and pressure from below at the street level. But if they don't have that, pyramid of power and at the street level and the higher levels, they're irrelevant. And now they can't call for strikes. They can't say, we're not picking up your garbage, we're not doing this, we're not doing that. They don't control the robots. The technocrats will be controlling it. So you can see a real fight coming between the technocrats and the communists.
Oh, yes, you really can. On the other hand, this business of scientific dictatorship run by AI, this is a real threat. And if somehow these technocrats and our current administration, if they could pull off their coup d'etat at this point and slap us into a scientific dictatorship, it's going to be game over at that point. We have to get there ahead of them to stop them from doing that. I don't know how they're going to do it, how we can possibly do it at this point, but they're making inroads every single day on transforming our government into this AI-run governance model, not government, but governance, to rule the people in our country, and just like they do in China. They don't have much autonomy in China, and those people in China, they can't rebel at this point. They're captured, if you will.
Yeah, and add digital ID, digital banking, digital everything, turn you on, turn you off. I mean, you're done, you're toast. So much more dangerous than communism.
Wouldn't this be interesting that we would be fighting on the side of the communists if there wasn't a rebellion against the robots? We'd be on the street with them, I think, at this point, to say, don't do that to us, sort of thing. But what a horrible thought that would be.
It's weird.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Wow. Well, again, I don't think you're going to get this kind of conversation on too many networks, because I don't think too many networks understand the philosophies and the worldviews to talk about a coming war between the technocrats and the communists. Do you think?
No, nobody's going to get this. Very few people get it at all. But I have to go forward and whatever, let the chips where they fall, where they will. And if people get it, they get it, and if they don't, well, they don't.
Yep. All right, technocracy.news, and Patrick and Logan have a show each and every week, Tuesdays and Thursdays, 6 p.m. technocracy.news. Thank you so much for being with us again, Patrick.
You bet.
All right, folks, before we go to Dr. Thorpe, please go here, worldviewfoundation.com, worldviewfoundation.com. Our foundation exists to help us push out free programming for ministry and educational services. If you appreciate all the free programming, just know our bandwidth bill and storage bill of these digital files is like over $8,000 a month. No wonder people put everything behind a paywall. Well, we don't put our 24/7 stream behind a paywall. In fact, we even take the program, as you know, and put it up online for you to watch again tomorrow. Many of you watch a day late. But we could put everything behind a paywall and say, sorry, that's the way it is. But we don't want to do that. We want to keep ministry front and center, public service front and center. And there are a lot of people that can't afford to donate to us. Single moms, different people, they can't afford it. We don't want them, not being able to do this. There's a lady came up to me the other night with her son, 9 years old, and daughter. And she said, my husband died 2 years ago. I want you to meet my son. He's 9. He has a lot of respect for you and really looks up to you. I don't think I'd ever met this young man before. Well, she's a single mom. Her dad died. Her husband died. The dad of these children passed away. We don't expect someone like that to support this network. And we certainly don't want to have her not be able to have access to it. And if her 9-year-old son likes watching our network and looks up to myself and the other men that are on this network as figures that he can trust and follow and gain insight into, how could we put a price on that, put that behind a paywall? We're not about to do that. We have senior citizens that are on fixed income. We have other people that are in such serious medical conditions and their medical bills and whatnot, they can't afford to give to us. Are we going to shut those people out because they don't have the money? No, I'm not going to do that. And the American people are generous. This audience is generous. And they support this network to be open to the public and free. Yeah, we have a vault. And yes, we have a archive programming. And yes, we do some things only for vault members. But the vast majority of what we do is available for everybody. So please, go to worldviewfoundation.com and make a contribution. You'll find our mailing address there if you prefer to support us through the mail. Now, we're going to go to D.C. for a week. That's not going to be cheap. And yet we're going to spend a week there grabbing amazing interviews that we'll make available to you. Amazing interviews and filming of key historical places and documentaries that we're going to make available for everybody to watch. As we want to really do this kind of alternative to the History Channel, some of that programming, particularly on the weekend. So again, if you appreciate that we're getting outside the studio, if you appreciate we're doing these kind of things, the only thing really stopping us comes down to budget. It's amazing what we can do if we have the budget, right? And we're just asking you, you appreciate what we're doing. Go set up an automatic contribution. If you don't want to set up an automatic contribution, that's fine. But if you can, that would really take a lot of strain off because we can see how much is coming in automatically every month. We don't have to worry about people getting busy and forgetting about us. So consider setting up an automatic contribution. Don't never say, oh, my $10 a month won't matter. No, it all adds up. Trust me, it really does. Most of our donors are small donors like that, $10, $20 a month donors. So please, worldviewfoundation.com, worldviewfoundation.com. There it is. Check it out. There's also the website with the mailing address. If you prefer to support us through the mail, you can also use that phone number there. Leave a voicemail or text. Melissa is happy to call you back. Take your contribution over the phone. worldviewfoundation.com. Joining me now is Dr. James Thorpe, and we're matching tonight. We have our backdrop. He has his. This is our last night to broadcast for a little bit while we're on the road. Head back tomorrow, Good Friday, to the Mid-South from the Midwest. But with our new portable studio, we're matching Dr. Thorpe tonight. Dr. Thorpe, welcome back to the broadcast. Thanks for being with us.
Thank you so much for having me on again, Brandon.
Dr. Thorpe, you put out an X today that I saw, and it got my attention right away. You said this is exactly what Clinton and I have warned about for almost 2 years. This is what nearly wiped out a generation of hemophiliacs with HIV. The arrogant politicians and healthcare powers refused to address concerns of contaminated blood. There was you were responding to this X. My infant was given a COVID vax blood transfusion. Day 2 of life after mom died in birth. Immediate myocarditis. They tried to get me to unplug my son to cover their tracks and hide the heart damage surgery at the end of his discharge paperwork. They all knew what let's open it up. They all knew what they've done. And there's this poor little boy. Wow. I know of someone that got a transfusion had, within a few weeks, horrific, life-threatening reaction, almost died a few times. The doctor later admitted, I think you may have gotten blood where someone had that COVID shot. This is becoming a growing problem. We're going to be, hopefully, in the next week, interviewing Clinton and offering an answer to our audience here. But this is what you have been warning about for 2+ years, is it not, Dr. Thorpe?
It's exactly what Clinton Ohlers and I have been railing about. And it's just, well, it's like deja vu all over again. I graduated from medical school in 1979, and then, of course, certain select populations started dying off of AIDS, and then they isolate the virus, and it's bloodborne, and anybody in their right mind would come to the conclusion that the blood donations must be contaminated, and there's anecdotal reports all over, and yet the powers that be, the politicians, the American Blood Bank and the blood banking associations just mock, deride, and gaslight those who express concerns instead of acknowledging it and screening the blood and giving transparency to the American population. And because they didn't do that, not just the selected population that was targeted with HIV, the gay individuals, but also the people that were dependent upon blood transfusions, for example, hemophiliacs. And we almost wiped out a generation of hemophiliacs in the 80s because of the arrogance of these politicians and these healthcare associations and blood banks. And now they seem to be doing the same thing.
How many reports are you getting of people that did not get the shot and had to have a blood transfusion or had to get blood, and then after they got blood, they started having adverse reactions, and it's tied back to the bad blood, the tainted blood? Are you hearing about this? I know someone personally had this happen. Almost died
frequently
from it.
Frequently. Clinton Ohlers and I are in the process, and have been for the last year, putting together a series of case reports. And I've heard it all too frequently. And it's under very suspicious circumstances. So, no, it can't be absolutely tied back. But again, this goes back to the oxymoronic arrogance of the powers that be in the early 80s. Hey, knuckleheads, it's not incumbent upon me to prove that it's unsafe. You got it bass-ackwards. It's incumbent upon you to prove that your product is safe before you give it.
Yeah. Let's go to some good, and we're going to have, I think, an option here for you guys next week. Dr. Thorpe and I and Logan are going to be working on that. We may have an option for you next week. Now, I want to play a quick clip, because here we have now Marty McCary. I guess he is now inside, I don't know if he's inside the FDA or what he's at. He's inside one of these government agencies. Look at what he has just announced. I guess Big Pharma is not going to be happy with this, with the Make America Healthy Again agenda. Look, thankfully, I'm happy about this. Listen, here we go.
Well, we have to do two things. Number one is we have to partner with industry and pharma to facilitate the process, to make it user-friendly and expeditious. We shouldn't be in a receive-only mode. We want American pharma companies to do well and companies that do business in the United States to do well. But the scientific evaluation needs to be independent. And that's why today we're announcing we are removing industry members, pharma members, from FDA advisory committees. I was shocked when I learned that employees of big pharma companies sit on FDA advisory committees as members of those committees. So we're going to be replacing them whenever statutorily possible with patients and family caregivers. We are going to be inviting pharma companies to send representatives to the advisory committees, but they can sit with the rest of the public. and watch and pose questions as the rest of the American public can. Well, we have to do two.
Wow. So we were warning about this so many years ago when it comes to the FDA and big industry, whether it's the fake sugar companies or the drug companies. We were doing shows 20 plus years ago talking about the revolving door between the FDA, the Food and Drug Administration, that's the FDA, and these other groups. There's a revolving door between them. And this guy's saying, we're done doing this. We're not going to be putting the big pharma on the review committees. You got them sitting in there making decisions about drugs that they're involved with or their co-partners are involved in, and he's saying that's going to end. Is this the first you've heard of that tonight?
Well, this is the first I've heard of it earlier, late yesterday, I think, when I first saw it. But that's great for Marty McCary. But let us not forget Marty McCary's best-selling book that came out that I really think was probably ghostwritten by all the physicians that he acknowledged to put him in the very position that he's in. Let's not forget where Marty McCary came from. All right, he came from Baltimore, Maryland, Johns Hopkins University, the most government-captured organization on planet Earth, except for maybe Harvard.
Some say maybe tied to the CIA. That Johns Hopkins might be tied back to the CIA. A lot of people have been saying for years.
Yes, and let's not forget that they receive more money. They're on ACIP, the committee that looks at all the vaccine, and not only that, they received $1.3 billion just in 2021 to push the draconian COVID-19 narratives, and that included Dr. Marty McCary. And Marty McCary, again, thank you, Marty, for your seemingly boldness, but you write this book called Blind Spot that's just published that probably helped get you into the office. And I appreciated the fact that you acknowledged all the people that probably wrote the book at the end of the book. But I don't appreciate the fact that you are one of the primary doctors pushing the vaccine after it came out. So, I don't have a lot of credibility and in your book, Marty, you talk about it's a really very well-written book, and you talk about the horrible blind spots that the healthcare system in the United States of America has had in the last century. But you missed the biggest blind spot of all, Dr. McCary, that you won't even acknowledge that you're living in. That's the deadliest, the most injurious vaccine that's ever been rolled out to the public, and you have the biggest blind spot of any other hypocrite in the country.
So how did he get to that spot then? How did Make America Healthy Again let him get in that spot? Because it doesn't sound like he should be there.
Yeah, we'll see. Maybe, who knows? Like many of the other political appointments, I'm very disappointed in, and I'm very unimpressed with anything that's been done so far, including Marty McCary and all of the other appointees.
What did you make of some of the things that RFK Jr.'s come out and said about vaccines and autism and some of the people he's put forward? We're playing some of those clips tonight. Is he making good progress in those areas, RFK Jr.?
Well, I don't. He seems to be talking out of both sides of his mouth when he goes down and visits West Texas, and starts crying and supporting all these families. I think he presented a lot of misinformation. Let's not forget. I mean, I'm very concerned about the politicization of this area in West Texas. First of all, in the United States alone, what? 600 cases of measles? Come on. Europe had 120,000 cases in the same time frame. What's the big deal? Measles is a big nothing. And, I validated the data in the last 25 years since the turn of the century. VAERS, the Vaccine Adverse Event Reporting System from the CDC and .gov, discloses, I've looked at this, I've verified, you've seen the posts all over X, 141 deaths from the MMR vaccine in the last 25 years. Well, the VAERS reporting system only reports 1% of the cases. So you've got over 14,000 cases of little children that were likely killed by the measles vaccine, MMR. And in that same time period, how many Americans died of actually measles? 9. Not to mention the fact that the morbidity, the complications from these measles shots, including severe, permanently neurologically disabled children with severe mental retardation, severe spectrum autism, eczema, allergic reactions, and I could go on, Brandon. That arguably is even worse than all the deaths. So, and also, it's very clear in the literature that the measles vaccination in of itself causes measles, causes a very atypical type of measles. And it turns out that these children, some of whom died in West Texas, had multiple other COVID morbidities, and it's unlikely that measles caused their deaths. It was more likely attributable to mismanagement in the hospital and other diseases that they had.
So right now, here tonight, April 17th, 2025, I know you are a big supporter of RFK Jr. getting in there. I wanted to see him get in there and disrupt some stuff. On a scale of 10, 10 being the best, what do you give him?
Well, I want to give him the benefit of the doubt, and I want to give him more time. But, if what he said was real and really came out of the lips of JFK, saying the way to stop the measles is to give the vaccine, if that's really him, he flunked on that one. And he's become bought out or controlled or politicized. But I'll give him the benefit of the doubt. Listen, I really somehow really believe in him. I believe that his motives are pure. What happened, I don't know, but I feel like Trump was anointed by God to become the president. I really do, especially after he survived the attempt at his life.
Mm-hmm.
And
100%.
I hope to believe the same.
Hepatitis B.
The vaccine?
Say it again.
You're asking about the hepatitis B?
I think there's a connection between, I saw today or this week, connection between the hepatitis B shot given to little children and autism. What do you think of that?
I believe it's very credible. The hepatitis B vaccine should never be given to children after birth. That's an abomination. It makes zero sense. Okay, I don't have a problem with the vitamin K shots. Okay, fine. You want to give some vitamin K, it's probably not necessary. I think the risk of harm is extremely low. Same thing with the ophthalmic eye ointment for the newborns. Okay, it's probably unnecessary in the vast majority, but no. A hepatitis B vaccine is not necessary in no way, shape, or form unless under very exceedingly rare circumstances.
Well, there's so much we could talk about. Tonight on my Worldview Report, I talked about your report along with Dr. Peter, the psychiatrist,
McCullough?
Dr. Peter Breggin.
Peter Breggin.
Well, McCullough, too. He was involved, too.
And Breggin.
But you were talking about this now. Yeah, and Breggin. You were talking about this some time ago, but now you've got another study. And I reported on the Worldview Report tonight, mentioned your name as being involved in that study, that these shots are causing people to have suicidal and homicidal tendencies violence, violent behavior, all kinds of things. But yet, again, very few people are reporting on this. We did. But you've been saying this for some time, but you guys went and did another additional study from the time we were talking about this with you a year or more ago?
Yeah. So what I've never published a formal report. I've been following this every quarter on VAERS, on the government database. And so I've posted previous versions of the analytics on your program and on my X. But I've, up until this past publication earlier this week, I haven't formally published it, but this is the most recent. I've been so focused on it for the last 2 years because the safety signals every quarter of the last 2 years has progressively gotten more and more concerning. So, yeah, I think that you did an incredible interview that I saw go around on, I believe it's on X, maybe it's on YouTube, of Mr. Nicholas Hulscher, the Master's in Public Health from the University of Michigan, Department of Public Health, a brilliant young investigator and a great interview. And I see that you guys focused on our study.
Yep. Well, I hate to say it, but I think we're going to continue to see more and more violence and more people having psychotic episodes. I also talked to Dr. Peter Breggin not too long ago about all these manic episodes, people ripping their clothes off and walking around naked in the airport, tripping down on airplanes. I mean, when do you ever in your lifetime, doctor, remember so many people having such manic meltdowns so frequently? Now, I know everyone's got a camera today to film it, but come on, I'm 56. I've traveled. Yes, I've flown on planes. I don't fly anymore. I quit flying in 2005. I've flown on a ton of airplanes. Never once in all the airplanes I flew on did I ever see anyone get into a fight, have an altercation. None of that. I've been in all kinds of airports. Never saw it. I've held over 300 events myself with lots of people. I just don't see these psychotic meltdowns until the last few years. I haven't done a study, but in my man on the street level observation, there appears to be a correlation between the COVID shots and what seems to be, in my opinion, a curve up, a move up in public manic episodes. What say you?
Well, I think your point is very well taken. There's no question that the severe psychotic and irrational behavior has skyrocketed since the advent of the shot. I don't think that it's a sole contributor. I think it's a multi-variable. I think there's multiple different variables that have fed into this. But I think COVID-19 is definitely one of them. You need not follow these social, libs of TikTok is a great example, who's a young Jewish woman who's become very famous in her social media posts just using the meltdowns that you've described. And res ipsa loquitur, let these mentally ill people record what they post themselves, and then she gets banned. So you're right. But I think that in the article that we published such a strong, I believe, discussion that is extensively referenced with a pathophysiological mechanism that is so plausible. I think it's hard to deny. These are 86 different adverse events, kind of us breaking them down into three categories: cognitive deficits or intellectual deficits after the shots, psychiatric phenomena and diseases, all of them, conversion reactions, schizophrenia, all of these. And then the third being a potential for self-harm and harm to others in about 11 different of these lower level symptoms in VAERS database.
I saw a video tonight, and I can't play it because a woman was cussing up a storm. But these people are eating at a restaurant, sitting in their booth eating. And this woman walks over and just starts berating them and cussing at them and telling them to get out of the restaurant because the man was wearing a Make America Great Again hat. I mean, she had a full-on meltdown. There's assault and battery. The assault is when you come up to someone and you give them reason to fear for themselves. The battery is when you start touching them. And this was clearly assault, in my opinion, as this woman, she was a rather big lady, was just all hanging all over their table and confronting them and yelling at them, cussing at them and telling them to leave the restaurant because the man's wearing a Make America Great hat again. Are you kidding me? I mean, I'm telling you, I think Michael Savage had it right years ago. Liberalism is a mental disorder. And then you add the shots along with whatever else these people are doing. And a lot of these people they're certifiably crazy.
And don't forget, too, that the social media and the government and the CIA and, Operation Mockingbird and so many others, they're fomenting this for a reason. All the media, all the movies, they're fomenting this hatred among Americans to destroy America.
Absolutely. Let's show his Skype handle. At J.A. Thorpe, X, I guess. At J.A. Thorpe, MFM. At J.A. Thorpe, MFM. Follow him on X. freedomintruth.substack.com as well. freedomintruth.substack.com. The great MD, Dr. Thorpe, OBGYN, seeing 8,000 patients a year at the peak. The peak of his career. And then, of course, your great book, Dr. Thorpe. Tell us about that, where they can get it.
Yes, I'm very honored, and I'm unabashedly, unapologetically promoting this book because why? The name of the book is Sacrifice, How the Deadliest Vaccine in History Targeted the Most Vulnerable, written by myself, first author, and my co-author, Celia Farber, an incredible investigative journalist. And this book, again, I'm pushing it, and here's why. Because every dime of proceeds that I make is being donated to a fund at the Wellness Company called the Wellness Initiative is the name of our tax-exempt fund. And guess who's responsible for distributing? Myself, and I will distribute these funds to the COVID-19 vaccine victims. And we've already made our first disbursement. The fund is already set up. We'll have a website page on there soon. And so I'm really honored that the Wellness Company, founder Foster Colson and CEO Peter Gillily, who you know so well, that they are, have the heart that I do to match the donation from the book and really support the vaccine injured. I think that the Wellness Company sets a bar for the rest of the parallel healthcare systems to follow. Let's all of them. Let's everybody step up and start getting monies and donating monies for the vaccine injured. There's 30 million COVID-19 vaccine victims in the United States of America. 30 million dead and or injured.
Then where can they get the book, Doc? On Amazon?
The book is on Amazon or Barnes & Noble. And I'm so appreciative of your endorsements and your promotion of the book.
Absolutely, Doc. Absolutely. Get a copy, folks. And also go to worldviewhealthcare.com. Worldviewhealthcare.com. You can get the supplements there, the medical emergency kits, all the great things, the spike, deal with the spike protein. You can get the whole supplements there to help wash those spike proteins out of your system. All that goes on with people shedding on you. All of it you'll find at worldviewhealthcare.com, which is the wellness company. Worldviewhealthcare.com. Use that URL, and we get credit as well to help fund the program. Worldviewhealthcare.com. Dr. James Thorpe, thanks for checking in tonight.
Thanks for having me on, and have a happy Resurrection Sunday.
You too, my friend. Amen to that. Dr. James Thorpe checking in. Joining me now is David Pine, national security expert. You can find him at dpine.substack.com, dpine.substack.com. We'll also give you his X account here in just a minute. David, it's been a while since we've had you on due to our traveling. We're in the Midwest now. Just had a big rally the other night, had 1,000 chairs set up. We filled those and people were standing. And so we're still here in the Midwest, depart back for the Mid-South on Friday. Good Friday, we'll be off the air. But we wanted to get you in here tonight because there's a lot going on since our last visit. Let's start off with the report that President Trump was being encouraged to strike Iran with Israel, something our reporter on the ground in Israel at the time, Aaron Labarca, was telling us, that all the signs were that there could be a strike on Iran any day now. But now we get reports that Tulsi Gabbard, Pete Hegseth, White House Chief of Staff Susie Wiles talked President Trump out of that. Of course, you and I have talked many times about how we need to avoid getting tangled up in too many things overseas and doing something to Iran that would spark a problem here on the continental U.S., like, I don't know, maybe encourage terror cells like Hezbollah to let loose. Tell us about what you're hearing about this conflict in the Trump White House. And basically, I guess you got one group in one ear and one group in another, one wanting to go to war, the other saying, no, we got to do this diplomatically. What are your thoughts tonight, David?
Hey, Brandon, great to be with you again. This breaking news story from the New York Times last night was really interesting, and as you mentioned, it highlighted the fact that there's two opposing wings of the Trump administration. There's the neocon wing that's led by Mike Waltz, effectively a national security advisor, and of course Secretary of State Marco Rubio. And then there's another wing, which is I call the MAGA wing. Which is led by J.D. Vance, Vice President of the United States, Tulsi Gabbard as Director of National Intelligence, and Pete Hegseth as Secretary of Defense. So Pete Hegseth sometimes does a little crossover on the Middle East and Israel, certainly did with regards to the war in Yemen, which J.D. Vance cautioned against, but the neocons won the day on that one with our continuing strikes against the Houthi government of Yemen. Which we do not recognize. In terms of this report, essentially the Trump administration was moving in the direction of supporting Netanyahu's request for direct U.S. military support for Israeli both commando strikes as well as some bombing strikes on Iran's nuclear weapons production facilities. I call them production facilities because, as we've discussed, Dr. Peter Pry has stated before his untimely death for a dozen years, well, the last 10 years of his life, that Iran was in all likelihood a nuclear power. We discussed the reasons for that. But thankfully, Tulsi Gabbard, responsible as she is for the president's daily briefings, top secret classified briefings, warned President Trump that a raid of this duration, in which we'd have bombing strikes over a period of 7 days at least, could spark a wider war in the Middle East that could perhaps even spread beyond the Middle East to with a Chinese blockade or invasion of Taiwan. We actually don't know for sure that that's what she warned about specifically, but she warned about a wider war that would go far beyond just Iran. It could affect U.S. troops in Syria and Iraq that could be targeted and killed by the thousands, as well as, of course, shutting down all oil shipments out of the Persian Gulf for an extended period of time. There's all kinds of ways that Iran could retaliate, including hitting the two U.S. aircraft carriers in the Middle Eastern region with hypersonic missiles that likely would not sink our carriers, but would take them out of commission and perhaps even transform them into burning wrecks. So I'm grateful that war was averted. And now on the more cautious side, J.D. Vance essentially said, let's postpone any U.S. military strikes until until any Iranian peace talks with them on their nuclear program effectively collapse. So, those kind of talks can take several months to result in an agreement, as we saw with the JCPOA. It's unclear. I would say it's doubtful that Trump has that level of patience. He's set, still set mid-May, or I guess late May, as the deadline by which he wants to see a finalized Iranian, nuclear suspension agreement.
Let's go to this story, David. China's H-20 stealth bomber fleet to carry hundreds of tactical nuclear warheads by 2035. Now, how do we compare to that on our side, David?
Well, we have a force of, I think it's about 50 nuclear-capable B-52s. We have 19, theoretically, we have 19 operational B-2 nuclear bombers. So we have essentially 65 total, operational nuclear bombers between B-52s and B-2s. And those can carry multiple, nuclear weapons each. We have, if we were to take, mobilize our reserve nuclear stocks in the event of kind of a DEFCON 3 situation where we believe that nuclear war is imminent, we could probably get about 300 B-61 strategic bombs. Well, actually, that would include strategic and tactical bombs on our bombers, as well as up to 300 ALCMs, which are nuclear armed. So those could, basically for new start counting purposes, I think each one of our nuclear bombers is considered to have about between roughly 5 nuclear weapons apiece. But in fact, we can carry a lot more than that. The problem, of course, is that our nuclear bombers have been off 24-hour strip alert since 1991 under an executive order by then President George H.W. Bush. So, that means that they could be easily taken out, with just 3 nuclear warheads, as Dr. Pry warned about, in the event of a nuclear first strike. And there's, it's unlikely that they would survive that or get off the pad before such a strike would occur within 30 minutes time. But these are H-20. Yeah, these H-20 nuclear bombers are really just kind of rip-offs of the B-2 Spirits that, of course, we've had in our arsenal for a couple decades. But they can carry up to 16 nuclear weapons, nuclear cruise missiles. So if every one of them were armed with, they had developed 50, which they could produce quite quickly, perhaps within 4 or 5 years, assuming they haven't already built them already to that level, then they could conceivably carry a total of 3,200 nuclear weapons.
How about this headline? Clear evidence Chinese companies supplying Russia with military attack drones, so says a Western official.
Yeah, so the Chinese have actually been supplying Russia reportedly with combat drones probably since late 2022. That was one of the links to to an article that Vivek Ramaswamy and I published on, I think, June 1st of 2023 in the Federalist about how Trump could split the Sino-Russian alliance. So that's I guess not old news, but it's continuing news. It's something that's been largely rejected by the Biden administration. They wouldn't admit that there was direct Chinese military support. But now, of course, we hear from no less than Volodymyr Zelensky that Ukraine has basically an entire company of PLA troops that are deployed in Ukraine, either as on-front military advisors or something along those lines, trying to learn combat lessons from Russia in terms of their winning their war against Ukraine, so that when China invades Taiwan, they'll have those lessons fully incorporated into their battle strategy.
Tell me about this one. Zelensky's top media manager. Tell me about this guy. I guess he got USAID money, my money, your money, taxpayer money, This guy's a real freedom-loving guy, right? Or wrong?
Well, yeah, I mean, Zelensky has all kinds of nefarious characters working for him as a murderous dictator. You know, I mean, Putin's a dictator too, so I'm not trying to defend Russia or make Russia look better than Ukraine, but certainly under Zelensky, you know, Ukraine has experienced a return to authoritarianism, and it's an authoritarianism that has, according to my sources, has caused all of Ukraine's, you know, non-banned remaining Rada members, you know, the parliament members, to live in fear. You know, they live in fear of being arrested, jailed, tortured, or even assassinated, because we know that, you know, Zelensky's CIA-backed and organized SBU death squads have been operating to assassinate Ukrainian political opposition figures, up to and including members of Ukraine's, you know, federal or unicameral legislature, the Rada. So this guy is you know, making death threats essentially to anyone who refuses to continue the Zelensky dictatorship with martial law. That, of course, he's used as a false pretext to permanently suspend elections, when in fact there's nothing in the Ukrainian constitution that authorizes Zelensky to suspend presidential elections. Under Article 43 of the Ukrainian constitution, the only elections that are suspended are elections for the Ukrainian Rada, and I think perhaps a judicial council as well. It says it's completely silent on presidential elections, which under the terms of the Ukrainian constitution would presumably have to continue to be held, since there's nothing in the constitution that would prohibit it.
David, let's go to a clip today from the Oval Office, because I guess there's a mineral deal that's going to be signed Thursday with Zelensky. Listen to this.
The minerals deal signed this week. Is that? Well, we have a minerals deal, which I guess is going to be signed on Thursday, Scott, next Thursday. And I assume they're going to live up to the deal, so we'll see. But we have a deal on that. No, I have no comment on that. I have no idea. That's his statement, not mine.
All right. I guess President Trump's saying we have a minerals deal, which I guess is going to be signed on Thursday, end quote. What are your thoughts on this?
Well, I mean, the latest version of the minerals deal is very slanted in the U.S. favor. It basically makes you know, Ukraine on some level kind of a colony of the U.S. I guess to use Trump's words, it's unfair. But I would be shocked if Ukraine would sign a deal like this. I'm thinking it's likely just a framework agreement that wouldn't be binding or enforceable. You know, that Zelensky could sign, and with all kinds of conditions, that if these conditions aren't met, and the agreement never even goes into effect. But we'll just have to see, I guess. You know, we've heard this before. I mean, there's been 3 different times that Zelensky has pledged that he's ready to sign the minerals agreement, and every single time he's backed out of it. So I guess I'm skeptical that we're going to see that. But when he says Thursday, I'm assuming that means next Thursday, a week from today. So, yeah, it'll be interesting.
All right, now, we have some folks that have been accused of leaks in the Pentagon and let go. I'm told by a source that those are people that were in the inner circle of Secretary Hegseth, had worked with him with an organization outside the Pentagon before he got there as SecDef. What do you know about this? Is this an attempt by the deep state or who to separate Pete from trusted advisors? What do you know about any of this that I'm being told?
Well, I don't have any inside information to share with your viewers, unfortunately, but it seems to me, given that all of the folks that have been targeted or suspended are America First conservatives, you know, that are 100% in support of Hegseth and the Trump agenda, this may be, you know, kind of a neocon night of the long knives, trying to, yeah, really isolate Secretary Hegseth and perhaps try to force their replacements with neocon, you know, folks that are, you know, backed by Waltz and Rubio to try to, you know, regain the initiative. Because, you know, right now, on some issues, the neocon wing and the Trump or the MAGA wing of the Trump administration in the cabinet level are, somewhat evenly divided. But I think that the MAGA wing is has somewhat of an advantage on, when it comes to, not in the Middle East where the neocons are kind of have the advantage, but in terms of Ukraine and potentially even China. So in terms of, making a deal with China over Taiwan if they start a blockade versus going to war with them, as I think Waltz and Rubio would be more favorably inclined to do. So, we'll just have to see how this works out. But I'm very hopeful that they'll be exonerated of any wrongdoing in terms of leaks. I think it seems incredulous that multiple top Hegseth advisors, all of which are MAGA, America First conservatives, would be investigated or accused of this all at the same time. It definitely stinks to high heaven, in terms of a potential neocon, attempted coup against Hegseth's top advisors.
That's what I was concerned about. dpine.substack.com, dpine.substack.com. And your handle on X, here it is, at America First Con, at America First Con, and on Substack, dpine, that's dpyne.substack.com. David, as always, thank you for our, well, I was going to say weekly, but it's often several times in a week, but thank you for our regular visits to help us get up to speed on what's going on. Geopolitically, national security-wise, thank you for all you do.
Thanks, Brandon. Always a pleasure. Keep up the great work.
Thank you. David Pine checking in tonight on Brandon House Live here on Worldview Tube. Joining me now is Dr. Lana. We always like to visit with her once a week on various health issues. Tonight, we're going to talk about a problem that, I don't have a whole lot of knowledge on this one, folks, obviously, but it's called premenstrual dysphoric disorder, or PMDD, and it's a more severe form of PMS. Causes inflammation in the skin, leading to itchiness in multiple areas of the body, all kinds of other conditions. Something that you don't hear obviously talked about a lot, but it's so serious that it can lead people to very, very serious health problems, depression, many, many problems. I want to talk about that. Also, RFK Jr. held a press conference this week on autism, and I want to play a clip related to that with an expert he brought in. And then some studies show that about 80% of Americans have toxins in their bloodstream. Joining me to talk about this and more is Dr. Lana. Dr. Lana, welcome back to the broadcast.
Thank you so much. I love being here, of course.
Well, we try to talk about things a lot of people aren't talking about. That's very common for us. We want to be different. We don't want to be like every other program. And this certainly will be different than every other program. Premenstrual dysphoric disorder, PMDD. Are you familiar with this? How widespread is it? And according to some of our viewers who have sent me some information on it, it's one that can send ladies and young ladies into great depression and serious health crises that struggle with it. Can you tell me about it?
Absolutely. And, they did a study on menopause, the largest study in the United States, and this causes women to leave their careers, leave their jobs because they feel so terrible they can't go to work. So there's no need for this. And I share with women, I sailed through menopause, didn't have any of this, no hot flashes, no night sweats, no depression, no sadness, no weight gain. Why don't women know about this? And it's my honor to teach them because you don't have to suffer. And the core of this starts, and I'll share with you some tools, ladies and gentlemen, because if these are your wives or your daughters, or your sisters, you want them to be healthy because it can move into, as you said, Brandon, more serious health issues, and it doesn't need to happen. So it starts at the core of where I start with my programs, and my system is called the code. And part of that is about the function of our cells. And I'm going to help you right now today get started with a couple of things that can help you back this down or not get it. So you'll want to listen to help the lovely ladies in your life, or if you're listening, ladies. So the cell membrane, as I've shared quite a bit on this show, gets clogged, it gets inflamed. We're going to talk about later from toxins and chemicals and 5G and just eating, breathing, moving, eating the wrong foods, even eating foods that we're taught are healthy can damage and inflame our cell membranes because they're not healthy. And we know the food guide pyramid is keeping us overweight and sick. So what do you do to help your double layer cell membranes be less inflamed so the cells can function? And when your cells can function, ladies, you don't have these symptoms. It goes back to cellular function. Doctors just aren't talking about that. We all learn that in school, but we don't go back and educate our patients, especially in the OBGYN offices. They're busy, they're well-meaning, but they don't go back to the core of what's going on, and it's in your cells. So how do you reduce the inflammation in your cells? And then how do you get nutrition into your cells? And I will share with you, and I know Brannon and Melissa have a site that you can go to, but Brannon had no idea that I was going to tell you to do this right now. So this is how God works, right? You have got to, ladies, you've got to start helping your cell membranes reduce the inflammation, getting rid of toxins, and you do that with the glutathione swish. Glutathione is the only molecule in the world, it's in your cells, God made it, that will remove all toxic chemicals, poison, glyphosate, pesticides, peroxynitrite from your cell phones. They inflame your cells can't communicate, you start to get symptoms. The other thing, ladies, I would highly recommend is you're going to swish for a few minutes with the glutathione swish first. You're going to wait 5 minutes and swish with the pretty lilac HERS bottle. Guys, this won't hurt you, but this is for ladies, okay? So you swish with the blue glutathione a few minutes. You can spit it out if you want. Wait 5 minutes and swish with the HERS. This is not a hormone. There's no hormones in here. These are God's botanicals that are microscopic, and they're getting into your cells, and that will naturally help you balance hormones. So here's your morning routine. And then here's your night routine. You do the same thing morning and night. Keep it with your toothbrush, ladies, and do the blue first and the lilac second, 5 minutes in between, and you're going to swish a few minutes each time. I want to stick with the glutathione mode for a minute, and then I'm going to finish with the fourth step. So the third step, and then I'm going to give you some tips about food, ladies, because that is a big piece of this as well. The glutathione skin spray is absolutely remarkable for skin disorders. Maybe I had adult acne as a young woman before I got my doctorate and knew how to reverse that naturally. So adult acne, skin disorders, as Brandon mentioned, come along with this PMDD syndrome, if you will. This is glutathione microscopic skin spray with hyaluronic acid, curcumin, and it also has collagen in it.
What's the dose? What's the dosage they take, Dr. Lana?
Well, sure. And we say servings because we're compliant here. Absolutely. So it's 2 white capfuls. 2 white capfuls. Each white capful, ladies, is a teaspoon. So 2 teaspoons or 2 white capfuls. You're going to swish, 3 minutes. You can swish. The owner of this company, he swishes and jumps in the shower. I do the same thing. I swish a few minutes, jump in the shower, jump out of the shower in the morning, and it takes about 5-7 minutes. And then you can swish 2 capfuls of the HERS, which are just botanicals, ladies. They are not hormones. I want to say one important point about the HERS. If you are on bioidentical hormones, take this to your OBGYN, because he or she is going to have to wean you off of the bioidenticals very gently and then you can use this. So it's 2 capfuls or 2 teaspoons, and you just swish that 5 minutes in between, and you can spray the topical glutathione skin spray over under makeup or on the affected area any time of the day or night. The last piece of this before I talk about food is getting greens, getting nutrition inside your cells. Ladies, the only way you can do that effectively, the only way that you get that complete nutrition that is bioavailable, meaning it's getting in your cells, is with a scoop of Gatatana a day. Put it in a couple of ounces of coconut water, couple of ounces of cold liquid that you like to eat because it tastes like plants from the ocean. So I say this isn't chocolate ganache that you're going to have on some berries, you know, for dessert for Easter dinner. This doesn't taste great. It is grown in beautiful filtered seawater. So put it in a couple ounces of coconut water, couple ounces of cold liquid, never hot. Do not miss a day of Gatatana because this is getting greens and nutrition into your cells. It also helps your gut health that you desperately need with this condition. The last thing I'll say, and you can actually, if you want, go to inspiredbywellness.com. I can help you with the crucial care consultation. But ladies, the last couple things that I encourage you to do, diet is key here with this disorder. So one of the first things you're going to do is ditch dairy. That's one of the steps in my system. There's a very specific way to do it, but in today's world, it's very, very easy to do that because you've got low calorie coconut milk, low calorie oat milk. You've got to ditch the milk, the coffee creamer, the butter, the cheese. There's a protein in it that's very deleterious, very dangerous. It actually promotes tumor growth, and it is a real nemesis to this PMDD disorder for women. Dairy is.
Okay, so it's tied to the PMDD, the premenstrual dysphoric disorder. But you're saying certain types of dairy encourage tumor growth. So guys need to be worried about that too, right?
Absolutely. And you all know me well enough, I think by now. This isn't my take on something. It's not, Dr. Lana's opinion. This is gold standard science that, and it's actually, if you want to get a great book, everybody get the China study. And it's not what you think it's about. It's the largest nutritional study done on human beings in the history of mankind. The China study, you can get it on Amazon. Dr. T. Colin Campbell personally trained me many, many years ago. He's in his mid to late 90s now, but he led the study in China when the leader of China in the early 1970s was dying of cancer, and he didn't know why. So some of the top doctors in the world, Dr. Campbell led that study, and the outcome, the preponderance of the evidence of the China study, the most pristine nutritional study ever done, says you've got to have only about 10% organic meats and eggs, 90% plants. You can have your meats, you can have your eggs, absolutely. Of course, you're not having, flour in there, you're having whole food, but absolutely no dairy. There is a protein in dairy called casein, casein, that promotes tumor growth. So yes, men, you want to avoid dairy as well. And I work with private patients and help them design their day so they're not consuming dairy.
But PMDD is different. It causes emotional and physical symptoms similar to PMS. But people with PMDD find their symptoms draining. Your PMDD symptoms could interfere with your daily life, including work, school, social life, and relationships. The symptoms of PMDD usually show up the week before your period starts and last until a few days after it begins. Most of the time, they're severe and exhausting, and they can get in the way of your daily activity. Some of these include appetite changes. Of course, you got hot flashes, which again is something that most people wouldn't, I guess, associate with that for young gals who aren't going through menopause. But you have nausea, vomiting, backache, acne. Listen to this, folks. Skin inflammation and itching, flare-up of other conditions, skin conditions, dizziness, fatigue, These are just a few. Let's see if I get any more. Then you get the emotional problems, such as depression or panic disorder. There you go. This, again, is something I'd never heard of, obviously. I'm a guy, but I have women in my life, and my wife was hearing about some people that were having symptoms, and the symptoms she started researching came back to this. And she started telling me about it. I said, well, this would be a great topic with Dr. Alana, because we want to talk about health things that most people don't know about or don't talk about, because there's probably people in our audience that maybe suffer from this, or they have a daughter or a sister or an aunt or a friend that does. So if we have, it said here, 3/4 of women suffering with PMS, any idea what percentage of women suffer from PMDD? And I want you to talk about the skin irritation, the itchiness, the panic attacks, all these things that go with it. I mean, someone could think they're going through something, the dizziness, some kind of major psychological breakdown, run off to the psychiatrist and get put on a psychotropic, when that's not at all what they need, right?
That's exactly where I was going, Brandon. These women start to develop these symptoms, and they're put on birth control pills because we're going to try to regulate the menstrual cycle now. And then they are almost automatically put on an antidepressant or antipsychotic. And ladies, you are not crazy. There is a way naturally to help you. It goes back to cellular function, reducing inflammation, helping to restore your gut health, switching out some things in your diet. And yes, I think a lot of you know, I do not have a lot of supplements in my practice. A lot of functional medicine doctors, well-meaning, a lot of board-certified naturopathic doctors, well-meaning, have a lot of supplements. And that isn't the answer either. Going back to the skin and the depression and the anxiety that surrounds all of this, the glutathione skin spray can help topically. Okay. I can't share that enough. And that is alongside the glutathione swish. But the other two components that can help with calming, relaxing, calming your behavior is the Gatatana, because it's microscopic, green, beautiful, pure, God's plant food that is helping your gut health, but it's getting that nutrition inside your cells. Over time, this has a wonderful calming effect for people of all ages, young and old, and not just women. And then the HERS, if you are not on a bioidentical hormone, over time, ladies, do not miss a day of, so I'm going to help you out here. Here's your routine, morning and night. And then just take a scoop of Gatatana like 15 minutes before breakfast or 15 minutes before lunch with a couple ounces of cold liquid. This is helping calmness, calming the behavior, calming the anxiety, but it is over time. I want to impress upon you, ladies, it took you a long time to get to this point. It is not your fault at all, and you are not crazy, and you can get out of this, but do not miss a day. And I want you to think about what it's going to cost you not to get a handle on that. If you dig deep, this could cost a career, a job, a relationship with
a marriage,
a marriage. It could cost you a marriage. I was just, Brandon, we're always
the ability to carry for your children,
a marriage, the
ability to care for your children.
Absolutely. These women are made to feel, and again, I know the medical field is, we all take the oath and we don't want to do harm, but they have their toolbox. And the toolbox in the medical doctor's office, and again, I was trained by medical doctors. I'm not against them. There's a time and a place. But their toolbox, think about it, is a pharmaceutical prescription pad. It's treatment, it's x-rays, it is chemo, it is radiation, it is surgery. They want to help you, but they can only use their toolbox that they were given in medical school. I promise you, there is a toolbox, in my opinion, God gave it to us. God gave this to Brandon and Melissa, to me, to all of you, that is natural, safe, and effective, but it's over time. You cannot miss a day. I cannot impress upon you that it's got to be consistent, and then your food has a lot to do with that. So I help women design their day around their food.
How long will it take if women start doing this before these symptoms will start to disappear?
That's the magic question, and I wish I had an exact answer, but I'm going to give you, as always, the honest answer. And every woman is different, but this is the good news. If you'll pull out dairy and you'll focus more on whole foods, and that's a general statement, I know, because I get real specific with women on what to do, the blood vessels start to heal in about 21 days. So the inflammation in your blood vessels, so you can promote more optimal blood flow to every organ in your body, begins in about 21 days. I studied at the Cleveland Clinic back and forth with Dr. Esselstyn for years. He trained me how to heal the lining of the blood vessels. And you do that, with food. There's some specific protocols, but start whole food, ladies, pull out the dairy, start with that.
Okay, let's talk about something else. We don't rehearse a lot of our stuff here at all. You have no idea what I'm talking about. Most of the time I just bring it up, but I can do that because you're so smart. I'm not looking for anything other than your honest assessment as always. I have no agenda here. I'm just asking questions. What do you make of people who are on social media who say that a lot of this diagnosis of cancer is actually parasites or parasite eggs? What do you make of that?
So we all, and people don't like to think about this. They're like, this is gross, right? But we all have, if we took a look at what is in our gastrointestinal tract, you have got, viruses and parasites and fungi, all, bad bacteria, which is called pathogenic bacteria, good bacteria, beneficial bacteria. You have that whole mixed bag in your gut, in your system. And what you don't want to happen, where these, the bad guys, whether it's undigested food or it's parasites or what have you, from the GI tract, think about it, everyone, and you're all smart. I appreciate your kind words, Brandon, but if they're watching you, they're intelligent. So your GI tract goes from the mouth down through the rectum. Okay, it is supposed to be enclosed, right? It's basically a big, long tube, right? So you don't want things, pathogenic bacteria or parasites or fungus or undigested food seeping through the gut wall into the bloodstream, because what the body is going to do, it's going to say, Houston, we have a problem. And it's going to mount an immune response, and it's going to try to attack whatever foreign object is now seeping through the gut wall, which is leaky gut, and it is going to attack that foreign object. And that's where sometimes the body can start to attack itself. So that's where you're getting a lot of these really serious diagnoses. And honestly, it sounds so simple, but it starts very often in the health of the gut. You've got to keep those junctions in the gut tight. Things aren't supposed to get out into the blood, parasites and pathogenic bad bacteria, undigested food. You've got to protect your gut health. And I'm truly not taking one hammer and hitting all the nails, but the Gatatana, the Microclopsis Gatatana, even a scoop a day, a tiny scoop a day, is paramount for your gut health. And the new meat glutathione is going to kill off, destroy, and eliminate all the toxins, every kind of toxin. So those are some steps that you can do to help the parasites, the fungus, the viruses, and all of the pathogenic bad gut bacteria that's in your gut, because that's often where it starts.
What about these studies that show that 80% of Americans have toxins, forever chemicals, glyphosate in their blood?
Absolutely. And I'll go one step further. This breaks my heart as a mother. And I know you're a parent, Melissa is, and lots of parents and grandparents out there, even aunts and uncles. They found they did a study too on umbilical cords. Every umbilical cord had toxic forever chemicals in it. So this is inescapable. I mean, we live in this amazing Western affluent nation, but we have got to be our own health advocates. So how do you fight all of those toxins? I mean, glutathione is the only molecule in the world that will mitigate, destroy, and kill off the glyphosate, the chloromacquat, all the pesticides, all the forever chemicals. And I will share with you some tips. There's forever chemicals in our clothing, in material, in the air, water, soil, in our cookware. And I always like to give extra tips to you. And I get, nothing from this, but you've got to look at your cookware, ladies and gentlemen. I did, and what I did is I saved, and I'd get a little, I'd get a pot or a pan or a Dutch oven, one at a time. I personally love Caraway home cookware. It's ceramic cookware. It's a little pricey, if you will, but you can get one or two pieces at a time. Maybe get a big pot that you're going to use all the time. And then they offer, if you give a review, they'll give you like a 15% discount. That is how, over time, I built, my healthy, non-toxic cookware. And you want to make sure it's PFAS free. So Paul, Fabulous, Apple, Spectacular, right? PFAS free. That means it's non-toxic, because those forever chemicals are in our cookware and they're in our clothing. Wow. The only way you can get rid of them is glutathione. And then here's the kicker. You've got to start to pH balance the body. The body's part of the body's alkaline and acidic. The blood needs to stay at like 7.35 to 7.45 pH, or we will die. So what helps that? The greens in the Gatatana, the complete food in the Gatatana. So you have right here, my friends, with Melissa and Brannon's website through their sponsors. They're very, very imperative, serious wellness tools that you should have in your kitchen, in your bathroom, for you and everyone that you love in your family.
Excellent. Let's go to another clip here before we wrap up. This is Robert F. Kennedy Jr. This week brought in an expert. So if you don't want to believe Robert F. Kennedy Jr., he said, fine, here's an expert. Listen to him. Listen to this, folks.
Morning. Thank you for being here. I'm here as a long-term autism researcher and a clinical psychologist. I get to wear two hats, one with patients and families, trying to help them get to a diagnosis and to interventions and treatments, but also for the last 20 plus years as the director of the New Jersey Autism Study, which is a CDC-sponsored autism surveillance system. We've monitored autism in New Jersey in concert with the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention since 2000. When we began our endeavor with CDC, we expected to do maybe 2 or 3 baseline studies to establish how many children have autism, because it was not expected that autism prevalence would increase. Other childhood disabilities, neurologic disorders do not increase or change over time. But somehow, for some reason, with autism, everything was different. Autism went from being a very unusual, rare disability which affected, as the secretary said, 1 child in maybe 10,000, to being known in every community, every school district, every center that cares for children with disabilities. Autism is real. It's a true disability. It's not a personality quirky issue. Everything has changed for the individual with autism, and while there's a wide range of expression, it does change the family, and it does inevitably change the community and the the society in which we find it. Autism prevalence has increased very dramatically. It's increased in New Jersey, where we have excellent resources and access to services, and it's increased in all the states in the network. It's increased not only by the CDC ADAM network active surveillance activities, but it's increased according to federal IDEA statistics and information from a multitude of surveys. It is a true increase. There is better awareness of autism, but better awareness of autism cannot be driving disability like autism to increase by 300% in 20 years. That's what we saw in New Jersey. That's what the CDC report of yesterday indicates. And that's what, in my opinion, future reports from epidemiologists will show. The data provided in yesterday's report strongly suggests that not only is this a high point of autism prevalence, but in the future, rates can only be higher. Autism deserves to be treated as a real public health phenomenon, and I would say is an urgent public health crisis. It's not just that we're more astute or perceptive. It's not like 2 or 3 children out of for every one with autism has remained invisible. Autism is striking, and the consequences are lifelong. So I would urge everyone to consider the likelihood that autism, whether you call it an epidemic, a tsunami, or a surge of autism, is a real thing that we don't understand, and it must be triggered or caused by environmental or risk factors. We need to address this question seriously because, in my opinion, for the last 20 years, we've collected data but not made real progress in understanding what causes autism or how to effectively prevent it or treat it effectively. So I urge you to read the report very carefully. I urge you to do something that nobody does and go into the many supplemental tables and see that autism is a true phenomenon and that we need a correct perception, not a perception that allows us to just provide services without understanding the root causes or the true factors at play. So thank you for your
Wow. What are your closing comment on that, Dr. Lana?
Absolutely. This is a huge topic, and we'll talk about this going forward. But one of the things that I can say is that these children, I can say this and be compliant. What I would do out of the gate is absolutely everything he said is true. And I feel so blessed that I had a healthy child and knew to do some things differently. And the one thing that I can safely say to all the mothers, fathers, grandparents out there, this is microscopic food. This is, a lot of my patients call it God's green gold, God's nutrition, God's food. So this is no side effects, no contraindications. So even a scoop a day, because what they have found in teenagers and older children and adolescents and young adults that had behavior issues, and depression, anxiety, behavior issues, even like cutting themselves and that, really dark behavior, that after some months, even 1 scoop a day, 1 to 2 scoops a day, even one, their behavior started to normalize. So I would feel very comfortable. I would need someone to be my patient, and Brandon and I are going to talk about that going forward, but to give you specific protocols. But I would feel absolutely positively. We know that in the past, people of all ages have taken a scoop of Gatatana a day to help calm behavior, issues down. So I would start absolutely good, clean, filtered water. Start with a scoop of Gatatana. It is God's microscopic pure nutrition. And there is an entire conversation and protocols around this. It is a real serious health crisis. And these are largely they're our children. So we have to stand up and fight for them and educate mothers and fathers and guardians. There's some natural things that can be done. And there's also a host of things that go on the prevention side that Brandon, you and I can talk about that because it's critically important that everybody learns.
Inspiredbywellness.com, right, doctor?
Yes.
Inspiredbywellness.com. That's her website. We love our conversations with you. Thank you, Dr. Lana.
Thank you. God bless everyone. Happy Easter.
And my friends, you'll find all these resources she's talking about. And look, I'm interviewing her about the issues. I'm not asking her to promote Gatatana. I don't ask her to promote Numi. We bring up the health issues. She says, well, there just happens to be, this is what we're talking about. That's how important Gatatana and Numi are. And I take that with my Bella Grace every day. There's science behind it. So it is interesting that when I bring up a lot of health questions, she's offering you not a prescription pad, but a all natural, healthy alternative with science behind it. I don't give medical advice. That's not what I'm here to do, but I certainly am here to interview people that have expertise who can then share with us, also without giving medical advice, some things that you can do to help with these issues. So again, very important topics that we're trying to bring on these weekly conversations with Dr. Lana. And again, you can find Numi and Gatatana, the links to those at worldviewtube.com/sponsors, worldviewtube.com/sponsors. All right, that's our broadcast for tonight. Hey, go here, MelissaHouseGPA.com. MelissaHouseGPA.com. One scoop, the equivalent of 90 billion plant cells. And you know I give half a scoop to Dolly on her food every morning. Yeah, I may be traveling, but Dolly still gets her half a scoop on her food every morning. I still am taking my Gatatana every day. I had it this morning. I've had my Bella Grace. I take my Numi. These are three things I do every day, but start here right away with the Gatatana. They do have a pet product, but you don't have to buy it for your pet. If you don't want to, you can just share your Gatatana with them. That's what I do with Dolly. MelissaHouseGPA.com. All right, roll the music. That's our broadcast for tonight. Hey, don't forget, you can go to worldviewstore.com, worldviewstore.com, and order the free pack of 20 business cards. Pass them out. Tell people about us. Help us continue to grow and help people understand the times through the lens of a Christian worldview. Well, folks, it's been great traveling and seeing many of you in person at that rally. Thank you for turning out. But we're headed back home. It'll be good to get home. But we'll get back home tomorrow. Pray for our safety and travel. So we'll be off along with the rest of our team for Good Friday. We'll see you back Monday. Hope you have a wonderful Resurrection Sunday. Take care. May God save America.
Faith, spiritual values, moral issues, government, economy, education, work, responsibility. What we think about these depends on our worldview. Now, VCY America presents Worldview Radio with Brannon House.
Welcome. Glad you're with us on this Thursday, April 17th, 2025. The family as the incubator for good government. I had a great conversation yesterday with Jim Paff. And I said, Jim, this is such a fascinating conversation we're having. We need to have this on our Christian radio stations. And so Jim Paff is going to join me here in just one moment. We're going to talk about a lot of things. Jim has a very full resume, from being chief of staff for Congressman Thomas Massie to working with pro-family organizations. He's a historian. He's a committed Christian. There's a lot that Jim has on his resume that makes him someone that I can pretty much talk to about anything, right? I think you'll pick up on that when we have him on here in just a minute. I think it'll be his first time to be a guest here. Been with me many times on Worldview too, but we want to bring him to the radio side as well. We have a big announcement. We've been working on something for the better part of 2 months, right, Logan? Better part of 2 months we've been working on something, and that is a trip to Washington, D.C. with Logan, Melissa, and I, and one of our camera guys, the one that was walking around with the camera the other night at the Waukesha Expo Center, Michael. Michael's been working with us since he was 17 years old. He's now 40 years old. We're pretty proud of that because we love working with people long term like that. You get to know them, they get to know us, and everything. Everybody just works together well because they're like part of the family to us. And so he'll be going with us and traveling with us. And we have been added to, you ready for this, folks? We've been working on this a long time. We have been added to the White House press pool. We have been added to the White House press pool, and we will be reporting from the White House the first week of May, that Monday. What is that Monday, Logan? That Monday, is that the 5th of May? I think. Yep. We'll also be on Capitol Hill. We have all the necessary press passes. We'll be on the House side for interviews in the morning, Senate side, interviews in the afternoon. We already have confirmed members of the House, members of the Senate we'll be doing interviews with. And then, like I said, we'll be over at the White House a few times during the week that we're there as well, reporting from the White House inside the gate. I guess if there's a press briefing, our passes include that. We'll go into there and be a part of that. So we're doing this because you guys asked for it. You guys wanted this. We get a lot of people asking, when are you guys going to D.C.? When are you going to do this? When are you going to do that? And so we're going to do that. You guys know I'm not big on traveling. I really do like my schedule day in, day out to be the same. Dolly and the dogs like their schedules to be the same too. That's very common for dogs. They like the same schedule. And this old dog here likes the same schedule day in and day out for the most part as well. But I'm going to get outside the studio, and we're traveling for that week. Now, we have a couple very interesting stops along the way. We won't be telling you until after we've been there. We'll explain why later. And we also will be stopping at a lot of historic places. We have been working with the National Park Service. And I have to tell you something, folks. The National Park Service has been so responsive and professional and friendly and punctual. I wasn't expecting that. It is the government, right? And every time we talk to them, they're friendly. You can hear the smile in their voice. My wife had said that because I do all my calls on speakerphone because I don't want that cell phone up to my head radiating my brain. I don't need any more damage up there. And my wife, when I've hung up a couple times, says, boy, they sure are sunny personalities. I said, they are. They're just as friendly as can be, aren't they? And punctual, and emails get returned. And when you call them, you can get them on the phone if you know the right numbers to call, right? Which we do. We finally track those numbers down. And everybody in the National Park Service has been so generous and kind and welcoming. And so we finished up early this morning from our Northern Illinois temporary studio up early this morning. And we finished up the process for all the paperwork we have to fill out. And we now have passes from the National Park Service to be able to go to a lot of the monuments, okay, as a professional filming crew. I mean, I guess you guys, anybody can go there pretty much, I guess, right? And probably take your phone or camera along and film. But when you're traveling with 3 or 4 people and you've all got cameras, it starts to get a little suspicious. Like, I think you guys look like you might be a media outlet. Where's your pass? Where's your press pass? Where's your paperwork? So we didn't want to do that. Now, I'll tell you, a lot of the rules have changed because now people have such nice cameras that are 4K, 5K, whatever they are now. So a lot of the rules that used to be, you had to get a permit for this and a permit for that, that's changed because they know that the average citizen now has all this, right? But when you're traveling with 2 or 3 cameras and 2 or 3 people that are camera people, that sends off pretty much a sign to a National Park Service ranger that this is a professional media group. Let's go check and see if they got their permit. So I said, look, I even said to the National Park people, I said, look, we would rather just have permits because we don't have time to have a confusion on the ground once we get there. Our time is so limited. So we would rather just go ahead and get the permits and pay for them. So we paid the $900. We paid the $900, but that gets us throughout the week and the paperwork throughout the week to go to the Jefferson, the Lincoln, the Washington Monument, the Vietnam Memorial, the World War II Memorial, Iwo Jima. We've got a long list, and we have all the permits now to go as a professional crew. And what we're putting together is more programming that is telling the history of America. Pro-America, patriotic, historical presentations. I was talking to a friend of mine today, a retired military colonel, and he knows what we've been working on for the last few months because we talk to him frequently. And I said, I think a lot of these, some of these historical sites, I won't name them, are kind of run by leftists now. And 2 different people, unbeknownst to each other, told me, well, if you're going to try to go to this place, one of the homes of one of the former presidents, 2 people independently of each other said, you know they're run by leftists, right? And I said, no. The first person, I said, no. The second person said, yeah, I was just told that the other day by someone else. And do you know what we're finding? We are finding that some of these places where we try to go, they look up who we are, and they're really friendly with us, and they're willing to be accommodating until they go to our website and they see that we're Christian worldview news and information. All of a sudden, the door closes. A lot of these sites are run by leftists. Isn't that horrible? The leftists have taken over so many of these historical homes of former presidents and whatnot. Or they're afraid due to political correctness or whatever to let a group like us onto the grounds to film and in a professional media capacity. Now, again, many of you can go with your beautiful 4K, 5K iPhones or whatever and film all day long. But again, we try to go by the rules, dot every I, cross every T, and be straightforward and honest. And so we fill out paperwork, and we, like I said, we want to do that. But it seems as though when you do that, sometimes you're going to get an answer of no when they find out you're coming from a Christian worldview conservative area. And the retired colonel I was talking to this morning said, do you know that the History Channel, they don't seem to run a lot of the programs they used to run. He said, I had to go join their version of your vault where they archive a lot of their shows, and they don't seem to run a lot of that conservative, patriotic programming about America's founders and history like they used to. And I said, well, I didn't know that, but I know why. You know why, right? He said, yes, because many of these groups are not pro-America anymore in many regards. And so Logan and I believe that there is a need for doing some historical stuff, some historical programming that is timeless. Talking to people about public policy and what's going on is great, but that ages out pretty fast because the news cycle and public policy and everything changes very quickly. But telling the story of our founders and our history and our nation and those sites, that doesn't age out. That's timeless stuff, right? So we're going to be producing some wonderful pieces that we'll be making available to you guys, and we're excited about that, as well as interviewing people on the House side, interviewing people on the Senate side. Again, we have all the permits to set up our cameras and tripods and lights and do that. And then we'll be, of course, in the White House a few days, on the grounds a few days, reporting from there. But other than that, we're going to be hitting a lot of historical sites for filming, and then later producing that into short documentaries and TV specials for you guys to consume. All right. Now, I will say this. We have a motor coach and a driver and professional coach that will take the crew and all of our equipment, and that way we can just hop on, hop off, and we're not having to worry about anything but reading our notes, where we're going to the next place. I'm going to have to memorize a lot of scripts because I don't think they just have electricity to plug in anywhere for a teleprompter on these historical sites. So I'm going to have to memorize a lot of scripts that I'm putting together about this monument, this place, so I can do stand-ups. So we don't need to be worrying about parking and getting where and going where. We get dropped off and they can go park the bus because there's buses everywhere. It's DC, right? Got tourists all over the place, and tour buses. But what we are going to do is, for those of you who are members of our vault at worldviewtube.com/vault, we're going to take you aboard the coach with us, and you're going to go along with us. Most of everything we do, we're going to make available to all of you guys to watch. But some of the behind-the-scenes stuff and what it's like to travel as a crew with 3 dogs and a coach, you guys are going to get some of the behind-the-scenes stuff along the way. My wife's standing behind the camera right now, rolling her eyes. Are you not looking forward to this, babe? She said 3 dogs. Yeah, well, I only bought one of them. Someone else bought the other 2. But you guys will get the you'll get the benefit of that as Vault members. So we're looking forward to it. We have been working on this a long time, but we didn't want to mention it until after our event in Waukesha, because we wanted all of our emphasis to be on that. And now that that's over, we're spending really a lot of our time on finalizing the details of what's to come with this very special trip. All right, joining me before we go to break real quick, I'm going to go ahead and introduce him as Jim Paff. Jim, welcome to the broadcast. And these 74 Christian stations we're on. Hey, Jim. Oh, I'm not hearing Jim. I don't know if Jim is with us or not.
Oh, I'm here. I'm sorry. My bad.
All right. Hey, Jim. No problem. Had yourself muted. That's all right. Welcome to our Christian Radio Network and VCY America. Glad to have you with us.
Yeah. Thanks for having me, and really looking forward to this Easter weekend coming up and celebration of Christ. And thank you, Donald Trump, for emphasizing it this week.
Well, I want to talk about that when we come back from the break. The music's about to play. Computer will take it away. But what a whiplash we've received from, what was it, a year ago? Trans Visibility Day on Resurrection Weekend. That was done on purpose as an insult to people of faith, to Christians. And now we have the White House putting out a statement about the Resurrection Sunday. We have President Trump putting out on social media about Christ dying on the cross and showing his love to the world. We have a speech. We have a speech from President Trump, I think just last night, reading about the resurrection, the cross. What a difference a year makes. We'll be right back. Hello, I'm Brandon House. I want to thank you for all your support at wvwfoundation.com that helps make possible pushing out 24/7 content for free. Without your support, we'd have to put it all behind a paywall. But thanks to you and your support through our foundation, we're able to push it out for free as a broadcast service and broadcast ministry of WVW Foundation. Please consider going there and setting up an automatic monthly contribution, or go there and make an occasional contribution. If you prefer to support us through the mail, you'll find our mailing address there at wvwfoundation.com. You can also call and make your contribution over the phone by calling 901-825-0652. That's 901-825-0652. Again, all these details are available at wvwfoundation.com. Thank you for your support as we try to help people around the world understand the times through the lens of a Christian worldview. All right, welcome back. Glad you're with us. We do have breaking news. Sadly, there has been a mass shooting at Florida State University. I'm going to go to some audio, Logan. President Trump is in the Oval Office with the Italian Prime Minister, but he did address to the media this horrific shooting. We are getting reports that there were 2 shooters. One is deceased. One has been taken into custody. Now, when you hear about any shooting, obviously your heart goes out to everybody involved, because that could happen to any of us at any time. We all know that, right? And we think of them and the family members, and just your heart goes out to them. But then when I heard about a second shooter, my stomach really dropped, because when you start talking about more than one shooter, you're now talking about something highly planned and coordinated And again, I'm eager to find out what was the agenda behind this, what were the nationality of the individual involved. Whenever you start hearing about 2 shooters at one time, that raises even more questions. Listen to what President Trump said just a while ago from the Oval Office.
Thank you very much, everybody. And I've been briefed on the Florida State University, Tallahassee, active shooting. I guess it's an active shooter. Fully briefed as to where we are right now. It's a shame. It's a horrible thing. Horrible that things like this take place. And we'll have more to say about it later. Thank you very much.
All right. So they're going to have more to say about it as we get more information, as we're live. We will detail that to you. Let's go back to Jim Paff. Jim, tell our friends that are listening your website for your organization.
Yeah, I'm president of the Conservative Caucus. It's theconservativecaucus.org, and we were founded in 1974 by Howard Phillips. We're the nation's oldest conservative grassroots organization.
Excellent. All right, let's talk about what we touched on yesterday. We'll go several different directions, but first, I guess I should loop back to what a difference a year makes. Resurrection Weekend, the Biden White House declared it as Trans Visibility Day, and now this year, we have the president, the White House, in his official remarks on his social media, bringing the focus back to the death, burial, and resurrection of our Savior, Jesus Christ. What a whiplash in 1 year, Jim.
It really is, and I'm so grateful to Donald Trump for emphasizing this week. You know, the American experiment was founded upon the Judeo-Christian ethic. And in fact, you know, we've had a lot of debates in recent years about science and trust the science and all this kind of stuff and problems with the left and how they've dealt with it. But all scientific progress comes from men and some women, all of whom believed in God and most of whom were practicing Christians. Everything in the West that has been good, that has brought prosperity and liberty and health to human society has been inspired by the Christian ethic. And it's really satisfying for Donald Trump to recognize this. And I believe, and I was just talking to my wife about this earlier, I really do believe that since the shooting in Butler, Pennsylvania, Donald Trump is more focused on this than ever. He's always been a friend to Christians. He's always worked hard to protect religious liberty and to uphold the First Amendment in that regard in this country and around the world, frankly. But this is just one of those special times when someone so affected by what should have been horrible tragedy, really giving thanks to God for not only the election that took place to save us from Trans Day of Visibility, which is just a horrible pagan idea, and then to bring it forward as a real honoring of God's mercy and grace on this country. Donald Trump doesn't see himself as a central figure in all of this, against the narrative that he's some sort of narcissistic personality. No. He's focused on the American people being strong and serving that end. And I think laying this before the Lord this week has been a fantastic thing that he's done.
Yeah, absolutely. Praise the Lord. I don't know. You're a veteran. I mean, you were the chief of staff on Capitol Hill for Thomas Massie. Your resume is pretty impressive. So there's very little we can't talk to you about. That's for sure. But I do want to ask you if you agree with me that we have got to be ever vigilant, ever involved. We can't say, oh, Donald Trump's been elected, everything's fine. Everybody go back to watching football and doing whatever, hunting and fishing or all these other things we consume. Not that those things are wrong in and of themselves, but let's go back to entertaining ourselves. No. American Christians particularly, who are called to be salt and light, the salt to stop the rot, to be the preservative, the light, the gospel. If we don't stay very active and make sure that the shepherds, the pastors, the real shepherds, the real pastors of America are using those sacred desks. They used to be called the sacred desk, the pulpit. If we're not using this to awaken the American church to what's going on with Islam. I was watching a video today. Islam is spreading in Florida, the mosque being built there. We know what's going on in Texas. There seems to be an absolute concerted effort to take down Texas. If we don't stay awake with the laws that are now in Great Britain, in Europe, I read today about a bill in Great Britain that wants to basically prosecute anyone that hurts someone's feelings or offends them. And I think it just passed one of their houses over there. If we don't stay vigilant, we could see ourselves right back where we were prior to the election of Donald Trump, particularly if we have a lot of voter fraud going on with the midterm elections. Do you agree that if we don't take advantage of this grace God's given us, we could find ourselves right back where we were with the attempt to shut down Christian radio or to limit what we can say on Christian radio, more attacks on parental authority, freedom of speech, freedom of religion? Do you agree with that?
Oh, it's absolutely constantly at risk. You know, Ronald Reagan famously said that liberty can go away with just the next generation at any given time. And so we, as a general principle, we need to be constantly working to assert what our liberties are. We as Christians need to recognize we don't obtain our liberty from the Constitution. We don't obtain our liberty from elected officials. And by the way, we don't get our liberty from the courts either. That's not where liberty comes from. That's not where good government comes from. God is the judge of the universe. He is providential over the affairs of all mankind. He recognizes what countries do, and he will bless or curse them. We read this throughout the scripture, that God judges nations, but he also moves the heart of kings. Now, when we consider all that's been happening in this country, we need to recognize as Christians, this is a very real spiritual battle. A lot of people read through Ephesians 6, which talks about the attack of that our weapons of our warfare are not carnal, but mighty in the heavens. We're fighting principalities and powers. A lot of people will read past that and say, okay, yeah, well, I need to go hands off on government because I just need to, live my Christian life and go to church and all that kind of thing, and I can be satisfied. That is not what that is saying. In fact, a very famous theologian, Arthur Kuhlman, wrote an article or a book about the theological basis of what the church's relationship is to the state. And he makes very clear the reality that Ephesians 6 is applicable to what we do in the world. And I believe that too. What is a principality and power? It's some governmental sort of system that's happening in the spiritual realm, in the metaphysical realm. But the reality is that governing principle, in this case negative and controlled by Satan, as outlined in Ephesians 6, has implications in this world. We are called to be light and salt to the earth. That doesn't just mean we preach the gospel, and we should preach the gospel. It means something much more than that. We should be engaged in our culture. And the early church in the first and second, even third centuries, from its beginning on, was butting up against the political culture, the culture in general, and they did it fearlessly with an apologetic, as Peter said in 1 Peter 3, that we must have an answer for those who counter us or go against us in what we say. That needs to play itself out in the public sphere, and certainly it begins in the church, and certainly, our primary focus as individual believers is to keep our hearts right and to build a thriving church where we're at. But it doesn't stop there. The purpose of the church is to train disciples, not primarily evangelism. And those disciples have to go out into the world and provide that salt and light that's necessary. And what the Lord has really moved me toward in my career is to do that in the public policy and political realm, because there are serious ramifications there. I worked for Dr. Dobson. That was his belief as well, too. And much of what he did while he was running Focus on the Family. This is very, very important for us to understand, and a real battle for us to undertake.
Yeah, because if we don't do those things, then Christian radio starts to get shackled. The pulpit starts to get shackled. VCY America, has now got 60 years of broadcast ministry. And we were just doing our rally the other night in Waukesha. We had 1,000 chairs set up and people were standing. So I guess we were over 1,000 people, praise the Lord, right? And I stayed at the inn for 2 hours. And it was my joy and privilege to visit with so many of our listeners and to hear personal testimonies of what the VCY America Radio Network and Worldview Radio Ministries have meant to them. That light, that salt, can stop quickly in that medium if we have the government come along and say, well, you can't speak about the issues of the day. That's political, and we don't want you saying things about Islam. We don't want you saying things about the LGBT. That hurts people's feelings. We're now going to fine you, and if you keep this up, we're going to take away your license to broadcast. We may even prosecute you. It doesn't take much, and yet any of us who, and like yourself, Jim, any of us who've been in media, particularly Christian media, knows the power of broadcast. I like to think of the seed being broadcast. You broadcast the seed, and some of it takes roots. Some of it, goes into the ground and it produces fruit. And that's what we're doing. We're broadcasting the seed of truth, and we don't know what kind of soil it lands on in the heart, but we know for some it takes. And to lose the ability to put that out is an attack on what we're called for as Christians. And I think that's what you just said, and I agree with you 100%. We got a break coming up in less than a minute. Again, the computer will take it away, so I'll jump in when the music starts. But the family is so crucial to this. The incubator, the family as the incubator for good government. You and I discussed the other day, as we like to talk about here, that when Noah gets off the ark with his family, the right of civil authority was given directly to him and his family. If innocent blood is shed, you have the right to take life, capital punishment given to that family. Civil authority, the right to self-defense, the right to defend one's family, private property, all these things are given to individuals. Individuals end up making up families. Families come together individually and make up governments for the purpose of defending individual rights collectively. It's not defending the rights of the collective, it's defending the rights of the individuals collectively, our individual, private, God-given rights. So when we come back, let's talk about the family as the incubator for good government. My guest is Jim Papp, and you're listening to Brandon House, not live, that's at night. You're listening to Worldview Radio, but I am Brandon House, but it's Worldview Radio. Crosstalk with Jim Schneider comes up at 2 p.m. Central on over 100 outlets at vcy.org. Reporting from the Midwest on location. We'll be right back. Hello, I'm Brandon House. Melissa and I have been taking Bella Grace, this powerful elixir, since last fall, 2023. The results have been amazing. My hands would crack and bleed, deep cuts and cracks every winter for years. No matter what we did, we couldn't get them to stop cracking and bleeding. This year, I took Bella Grace, no cracking, no bleeding. My acid reflux, gone. Haven't had to take a Pepsid. My hair growth, the last 2 times I had my hair cut, the lady had to use thinning shears on my hair. That's amazing. We've also received incredible feedback from you, our listening audience, and the impact it's had for you. This is loaded with astaxanthin. That's a powerful antioxidant. Collagen, but top grade collagen. Studies show 95% of it is being absorbed in the body because of the way they develop it. Then we have something called cat's claw. That's an anti-inflammatory from a vine in Peru. It's the bark, and it's an anti-inflammatory. There are about 80 clinical trials on Bella Grace. Please get a subscription now and save. MelissaHouseBG.com. All right, welcome back. Glad you're with us. Worldview Radio, our website, worldviewradio.com. We are now getting word that there are at least 5 dead, 6 injured, 1 critical Florida State University shooting. This is fluid. We pray these numbers change and that they go down, not up. But that's what we're getting now. We're even now seeing video footage reportedly from Florida State University shows one suspect opening fire on people running from the student center. So again, we'll keep you up to date on this as well. Jim, before we go to the issue of family and family being the incubator for good government, you have a passage I think you want to talk to us about. Is that right? From the scripture?
Yeah. because when we get to the family and the critical nature of it that we're going to talk about, we need to understand what form of government God really does want. And I've made the argument that God does want limited government. In fact, he might want something close to almost non-government. I mean, we go back to the period of the judges. We go all the way back to Moses himself. And what was the design of government in Israel at the time? It was a system of judges, a requirement that those judges have moral character, and that they just adjudicate disputes between people and or other problems in society through a judicial system. There wasn't a formal king. There were a few little times where briefly there was someone that attempted to be king in the book of Judges, but it wasn't a set of kings. It wasn't a set of government requirements. The only real governmental type organization was the temple worship that existed at the time. And but when Israel came to Samuel, the last judge, and said, we want a king just like all the other nations, Samuel took offense at it. He took it to God, and God's response to him was, Samuel, they haven't rejected you. They rejected me. And what does that mean? It means that God wants a system of government where people seek him first and are responsible to him first. Now, when we get into Romans 13, obviously, there are some modifications of that understanding that are very helpful because the early church was dealing with secular governments that existed apart from any of their efforts. But in 1 Samuel 8, when God rebukes Israel, he gives them a warning that when you have a king, he's going to take your money, he's going to use your produce, he's going to control much of your life. I mean, when you read that passage of scripture, it almost reads like everything that we're challenged with in the United States right now. I believe our founding fathers understood this principle, and they wanted it to be a very limited government. We spend in the federal government 70 to 80% of what we spend is unconstitutional. When you read Article 1, Section 8 of the Constitution, what Congress is authorized to spend money on, it goes way beyond those boundaries. I think the founding fathers knew that a limited government, leaving people to their consciences to live their lives, drawing from the Ten Commandments and the understanding of the moral law, that you could have a good nation that would be prosperous and good. And we've had that for most of our history, except for about the last 60 to 80 and really the last 100 years, we've been struggling with a turning away from that principle.
100%. Of course, so much of it, 1913, the Federal Reserve, federal income tax, and the way they have, you go read the Communist Manifesto, the 10 planks of the Communist Manifesto, a progressive income tax. Here we are. I did read some good news. It looks like the acting IRS director is going to be a whistleblower, or not a whistleblower, but he's going to be put into a whistleblower's going in at some level, I read today. But I guess they're going to grab a former congressman to be the acting director of the IRS, who I guess is known as being very much for the common man. I guess he is a former auctioneer, among other descriptions, accountant or something in finances. So I don't know what President Trump's going to do with this IRS, but think about what it has done to the family. You talk about the attack on the family, and then you add inflation, the hidden tax, and forcing more and more mothers into the workforce, two parents into the workforce. Some of it, of course, comes down to tightening the budget, not living outside our means, not having to keep up with the Joneses. But of course, I think a lot of this progressive taxation and inflation to grow the size of government has been in order to force more moms into the workforce so they don't keep the home fires burning and build that incubator that creates children that reflect the moral law, understand the moral law, understand the principles and virtues of good government. I think this has largely been by design. Would you agree?
I think it's the effect, and for some people it is the design, that it has its socialist and even communist moorings, as you rightly mentioned. What has happened is that a federal government that Woodrow Wilson believed, and even FDR after him believed, should be directing how culture works. Both of these men made statements about how the Constitution constrained them from doing what they thought ought to be done in culture. Remember, just after Woodrow Wilson's time, intellectuals in this country were praising Benito Mussolini. This is long before World War II, when the violence and horrible atrocities of World War II took place. He was applauded in the intellectual elites here in the United States for organizing culture in a way that they thought was useful, and they wanted to go to his model. And it was a complaint that they were constrained by the Constitution from doing so. But what has happened with the income tax in particular is that it confiscates the wealth of all individuals, obviously, but families. They said it was only going to be the wealthy people that were going to be taxed. And then it quickly, within about a 10, 20-year period, it was going down to everybody. When you confiscate that wealth out of families, it almost forces women eventually to need to go into the workforce to make up the difference. So that's been the effect of it. And listen, the communist principles are anti-family, fundamentally at their core. All individuals are the wards of the state in a communist system, and certainly in socialist systems as well, which is only a slight modification thereof. And when you take wealth out of the family, you make it hard to build and form strong families, which are fundamental to any society. Like, this isn't just a principle of taxes. This is just a principle of how societies work. Family is a central structure that provides security, benefit, and future benefits as well by raising children who can do well. And if you've got a married mother and father in the home, it doesn't matter how good the marriage is, if you take out physical and sexual abuse situations in marriages, the social science makes it very clear for 60 years now that a married mother and father in the home is always better for overall outcomes of young children. You still have some percentage that go bad, but 60, 70% on major factors, you tend to have success. That's what families bring to a society. And by the way, last point on the income tax, the reason governments want income tax is wars. I mean, that's really the purpose for an income tax, and getting away from a gold standard, which is the other part of that. Because if they can confiscate the wealth of people, they can fund wars. This is literally the purpose for Woodrow Wilson working to pass the Federal Reserve Act and to get the income tax amendment, 16th Amendment, passed nationally, was for that purpose. And that's it, for the expansion of government and what government wants to do. And at that time, war being really the only expansive thing that they were seeking.
And it seems as though we may have just avoided, according to press reports, a strike on Iran by America and Israel. We'll deal with this more tonight on Brandon House Live with David Pine. But apparently, Pete Hegseth, Tulsi Gabbard, White House Chief of Staff Susie Wiles, that at least these three people, it's being reported, were really advising President Trump against striking Iran. We need to really be praying for President Trump, because I think there are some folks in the White House and around him that really want to go to war, or at least do these things. Now, I know that my friend Aaron Lavarco, our reporter in Israel, who's here in the States, was with us the other night. Obviously, they see Iran as a serious existential threat to the nation state of Israel and are wanting some help on this. I get that. But he also says, I understand where you Americans are coming from, that if you have terror cells, Hezbollah terror cells in the country, thinking that you can strike Iran with impunity without reprisal, is foolish thinking. And I think that's what Pete Hegseth and others understand. This isn't something you can do without provoking Russia, who has said that a strike against Iran is not acceptable. Then you've got China, who is in military alliance with Russia and Iran. And not to mention, if we start getting all up in that business, then China moves in on Taiwan, does a blockade there. We've got chips there. we get further against Iran. We've got pharmaceuticals coming out of there. I mean, we've got a lot of things the American people aren't aware of that require just-in-time inventory infrastructure. So people need to be praying for President Trump, because I think there's a war going on inside the White House as far as the war of ideas. And that's what you're talking about. A lot of groups, they make money going to war. What are your comments on what we're reading in the press today about this?
To pick up on that last point, President Eisenhower was correct in talking about there being a military-industrial complex that really does want to make money off war. Frankly, I believe that's why we went into the Iraq War. Look at how we expanded DHS, how we created it when it was totally unnecessary. We got rid of how we did screening at airports, because it wasn't screening at airports that caused 9/11, and yet people made billions of dollars off that. There is a real desire to make money off government, because there's a lot of money sloshing around when you allow it to do that. But as to Iran, I do agree. We do not need to be dropping bombs on Iran unless there's a declaration of war by Congress. And that's what our Constitution provides for. A president can't start a war on his or her own. They must have authorization from Congress. And I would be totally against such a thing. And thank goodness for people like Pete Hegseth, Susie Wiles, and Tulsi Gabbard. You know, Tulsi Gabbard in particular, she's got a really good voice in this area. She's not a thoroughgoing conservative, for those of you who think through conservative politics. She is a woman of character who understands how critical it is to take the right steps in this. And Donald Trump's being very aggressive with Iran, and I think he's going to figure some things out. But we don't need to be expanding in war constantly. This goes all the way back to the theology of St. Augustine, who first posited what's called just war theory. And others after him, and a few before, have talked about this issue. The reason for war is to protect oneself from aggression. That all wars are bad. They're even actually all evil. But some wars are just to go into when it comes to protecting yourself. We do need to have a very strong military that can protect our people. But it's not, we've got to stop constantly throwing it elsewhere. This is a phenomenon, a post-World War II phenomenon, where we really feel like we've got to go running into countries because it seems the quick and easy fix just to destroy the government. Well, we've been, after doing such things, setting up horrible governments that are far worse than what the people had beforehand. And it's something that we need to pay attention to as Christians and as people who care about these public policies.
Well said. 1-800-347-9829. Your thoughts, your comments, your questions. 1-800-347-9829. Again, 1-800-347-9829. We're continuing to follow the breaking news out of Florida State University, where we have two shooters, one in custody, one was shot by police, and apparently going into the student union with a shotgun, handguns, and we'll keep you posted as that is a fluid story. Phone line's now open. Hello, I'm Brandon House. Is the government tracking you? Do they have access to all your data? Well, if you go to worldviewtalk.com, you'll find out about a cell phone company that, well, does not store your data. They don't do that. This is what they're known for. They don't store your data. You have privacy. You're not being tracked. That's why a lot of folks are turning to worldviewtalk.com. You'll find their prices are very competitive. All the details are there at worldviewtalk.com. Again, worldviewtalk.com. Oh, while you're there, not only do they have cell phones that aren't tracking you, you can find out about how to get a satellite phone. Should the whole system go down and you want to communicate with a family member or a loved one, you might want to have a satellite phone. Or how about their solar generators? They have great solar generators. Check them all out right now. Worldviewtalk.com, worldviewtalk.com. All right, welcome back. Glad you're with us. Worldview Radio, our website, worldviewradio.com. Stay tuned for Crosstalk with Jim Schneider coming up at the top of the hour. And by the way, I think it is this Friday, isn't it, Logan? Is it this Friday, Dalton? The Corrie Ten Boom, the reenactment. You guys might want to, if I were in town, I'd go see that.
No, next Saturday.
Is that this Friday night, guys? Next Saturday,
the 26th.
Saturday. If that were the 26th of April, well, I should know.
You are
that.
watching Worldview too.
If I were in town, I'd go to that. That's for sure. That looks fascinating. So be sure to be checking that out for all of you in the listening audience. Can make it over to the Waukesha Expo Center for that. But Crosstalk, 2 p.m. Central, here on the VCY network. Now, Jim, let's go to the phone lines, 1-800-347-9829. People, we'd love to hear your thoughts, your comments, your questions, 1-800-347-9829. Jim, give us your website address again, please.
It's theconservativecaucus.org, T-H-E, theconservativecaucus.org.
Now, let me ask before we go to the phone lines, having been the chief of staff for Thomas Massie, can you tell the audience why it's important that they do continue to make their voice known to the congressperson? Because I think a lot of times we think, oh, that's not going to do any good. Does it matter when we call, when we write a letter, when we send an email?
Well, yes, it really does. And it's not by the way, the final and best part of the process, but it's an important part of the one. The best part of the process is to get people unelected that are causing you problems. I mean, that's ultimately why we have elections. But what you do in situations like this, when people are on the fence, is you really show them that there is support for things that matter. And sometimes, listen, they know a lot of info's coming through, and there are organizations like mine that might be telling people to go contact them. But when they get these big, overwhelming responses, it does make a difference. I can think of many times, and not only Thomas Massie, I worked for Tim Huelskamp, former congressman in Kansas. When we would have the phone lines light up big, we noticed it. And if we knew it was a principle that either of these guys didn't, really hold on to, I mean, we might not respond to it right then, but you knew it would happen. You're not going to persuade everybody, but you can persuade some. These people are persuadable because they desire to get reelected, which is why the best security is to get involved at the ballot box. But definitely, it does move votes. It really can make a difference.
Let's go to the phone lines. Ray in Kansas, line 3. Hi, Ray.
Yeah, you were talking about liberty and the TSA. I had to say something about it. I've been trying for 20 years now to get something done about mailboxes. Where my license says my address is not where I'm living at. I'm in Kansas. My license says Quinlan, Texas. I moved it to Greenville. I still can't get a license. I'm one of those 7.2 million people that aren't looking for jobs because I already got one. I can't get to it because I can't get a mailbox at the post office. And that's liberty and the TSA from 9/11. They say for terrorists, I can't get a mailbox. And so I'm out here homeless and can't work. So I just wanted to say something about that, as long as you're talking about liberties and how the government gives them to you and that's such that.
Very sad. Sorry to hear that, Ray. Let's go to Daniel, line 1. Daniel in Wisconsin. Hi, Daniel. Go ahead, Daniel.
Yes, thank you. I wondered if y'all would discuss if it's possible for President Trump to create a deep church and replace the deep state.
And what would the deep church do? What would they do, Daniel? What would you think they would accomplish?
No, we're not talking about trying to get a national religion. We're talking about putting Christians in the government in similar fashion how that they've put the liberals in there now.
Mm-hmm. Okay, I get it now. And of course, I'll let Jim speak for himself. I'm not saying that every person that goes into the administration has to be a Christian. Okay, I know that sometimes there's some people that are very qualified that are not Christians, but they're very qualified. I talked to a guy today who is former military, highly qualified. He should go into the Pentagon. I know he's even being talked to by some people at very high levels. He happens to be a national security expert and a Christian. But sometimes the experts are not Christians per se. But when you can find those that are, that's great. But what are your thoughts, Jim?
Yeah, I think it can always be good, but it's not necessarily the ultimate answer. It is a good thing, but it's not ultimately the answer. This is why we have a constitution, by the way. Everyone should do two things. Every person that cares about this country should do two things regularly. And you can piece it out over time, but you should do it. You should read the Constitution regularly, and you should read the Federalist Papers regularly. And I say that because I'm going to point to Federalist 51 right now. And James Madison, writing there, made the point that, if men were angels, they'd have no need for government. And if angels governed us, there would need to be no constraint upon them, because the moral problem isn't there. But as I say many times, 6,000 years of recorded human history proves the radical corruption of mankind. And that is not limited to non-Christians. Christians, too. I mean, we see Christian moral failures all the time. You can have corruption in government, even amongst Christians, if there's not some legal restraint there. They must be restrained. Chuck Colson wrote a book, Kingdoms in Conflict, which everyone should read. It was a great book. In the beginning of that, he brought up the scenario, and this is back far enough when I think Pat Robertson actually was running for president at the time. But he mentioned that, well, what if we did elect a Christian president? What would that look like? And he posited the possibility that that Christian president would have major failures in their judgment and activities. So, I mean, it's not an answer just to have a Christian in there. We need a lot of that, and we need people to understand that, but it really takes self-restraint. And the last thing I'll say here is John Adams said that our Constitution was created, in his opinion, for a moral and religious people. It is wholly inadequate for the government of any other. We've got a lot of cleaning up in the church to do, too. There's a progressive wave in the church we need to be fighting against, and we need to hold our pastors accountable and our leaders to actually offering the gospel and moral, clear moral understanding into society. We need it badly.
100% agree with that. Jim Paff checking in today. Jim, great having you with us. Thank you, sir.
Thanks for having me. Good to see you, Brandon.
You too, my friend. All right, folks, stay tuned for Crosstalk, but also remember, tomorrow's Good Friday. I'll not be here tomorrow. We'll run a best of. Because we'll be traveling back from the Midwest to the Mid-South, all right? So pray for our safe travels as we get back and get set up for broadcasting back in our home base, all right? Great again to see so many of you on Tuesday night. Thank you so much for being there. Take care.
This has been...
And that's our broadcast on those stations. We're back with WROS out of Jacksonville, Florida, and worldviewtube.com. I want to go back to our plans for our tour coming up the first week of May to Washington, D.C. Will you guys start praying about that for us? Again, we believe the Bible says the prayers of the righteous availeth much. So pray for safety in travel. Pray for our health. Pray for the health and alertness of our drivers. Then, of course, all of us on the camera crew and whatnot. Pray for divine appointments. Pray that the doors will be open. We still have some doors we're trying to get open. So pray for doors to be open that the Lord would want to have opened. And we can get into a few places I won't mention what they are, but we have a few places where we're trying to get in to film and to be a part of some historical sites. We're also working on some interviews. We're trying to get some key interviews with some people while we're there as well. Maybe pray about that those doors would open. But also, again, here's a great opportunity for you to be involved with us. So if you appreciate what we're doing, it's going to be very expensive to go out there, bring everybody with us, put them up in the hotel, bring all the coach that we need to carry all the equipment. We have to set up the studio out there in a hotel suite, just like we have here, so I can keep doing the Worldview Report and all these other things. I will miss some shows that week. I'll have some guys guest hosting on TV at night on a few nights, but we'll still be doing some of the broadcasts live from there. So it takes quite a bit to go do this. And if you appreciate the fact that we're willing to get out of the studio and go out there and do this and do a lot of great interviews and some historical sites, and then come back into our post-production room and produce some great television, historical television for you guys to view. And by the way, a lot of your kids and grandkids need to see this, okay? Maybe you guys can't go to Washington, D.C. Maybe it's not in the budget, or it's just not something you can do right now. Your kids and grandkids need to know about our nation's history and founding. They're getting lied to in most of our schools today. So It's important to have this good history for our kids, to have people to look up to. A lady came to our broadcast, or not our broadcast, but well, we were broadcasting, but she came to our rally the other night. She had a 9-year-old son. His name was Ezra. And they had driven all the way from Madison, Wisconsin. And she brought her daughter and her son to meet me. And this little boy's father had passed away 2 years ago. I'd never met this family that I know of. And she said to me, my son really looks up to you. And his father has passed away, and he really looks up to you as a male figure. Wow, that's a heavy responsibility and burden, isn't it? And I got a little time to spend with him and sign a book to him, talk to him and encourage him. But it caused me to understand that that's exactly what so many of our young people need today. They need figures in media as well to follow, to learn from, to look up to point them to the things and say, go this direction, go this direction. These are the values. This is the worldview to follow. So we need to use our position to point young people and say, you know, your parents are right when they try to tell you about our founding and the principles that have made our country free. And what happens if we aren't free? One of the places we're going to go to is the Anti-Communist Museum. Did you know there's an Anti-Communist Museum? I didn't. Tamara Scott told us about it. So we started talking to their director at the Anti-Communist Museum. That's going to be important to go to. So if you appreciate all we're doing, we need your prayers, we need your support. Help us with our budget to do this and push out this kind of programming. Please consider going now to worldviewfoundation.com, worldviewfoundation.com, and making a contribution of any size. Would you do that? worldviewfoundation.com. You'll also find our mailing address. Remember, it costs us around $40,000 a month to keep this network going, and that does not include my compensation, my salary. I have to make a living. I have bills just like you guys do, and my personal expenses, right? My family life. But that $40,000 a month is just our hard cost of keeping this network running. And we're pushing out free programming, and the bandwidth and storage bills is about $8,000 a month right in there. So again, our foundation helps us push out a lot of free educational ministry programming, and we need that support right now, please. Worldviewfoundation.com, worldviewfoundation.com. Now, I hope some of you will join the vault. A lot of you have been joining the vault. That's another way you can support us, is through our vault. And we try to do special things for those who are vault members to say thank you for supporting us and gaining access to our 35 years of programming there. But when we go there to DC, we're going to include vault members in some special on-the-bus broadcasts for vault members, traveling behind the scenes, seeing what we're doing. Some of it will be live. Some of it will be put up. We'll film it and put it up in the vault. A report, maybe something we filmed an hour ago, and then we pop it up in the vault. So we'll be doing a lot of special programming for vault members through that trip. Hope you'll join. worldviewtube.com/vault, worldviewtube.com/vault. Thanks for watching. May God save America. Take care.
You're watching Worldview Tube, built on the 35 years.
Joining me now is Dr. Lucky. Hey, Dr. Lucky, looks like Robert F. Kennedy Jr. is under attack. There's an article out there on Yahoo that says, this is the headline: the simple food swap that can lower your risk of dying from any cause by 17%. Here's what experts recommend instead. There's popular mantra frequently heard on social media: butter makes everything better. Americans have apparently taken that to heart, eating about 6.5 pounds of butter per person a year. But new research suggests that butter enthusiasts may want to cut back. It could help them live longer, and it goes on from there. Some are saying that they're concerned about the timing of this, and if some of this isn't really meant to, try to confuse the public as RFK Jr. is setting about to do the work of trying to make America healthy again. I sent the article over to you. Did you have a chance to read it? And if so, what are your thoughts?
I did not have a chance to read it, but I've got some thoughts on it, Brandon, to be honest with you. It's interesting that they'll go back and forth from salt is bad for you, salt is good for you, butter is bad for you, butter is good for you, beef tallow, good for you, not good for you. And it's interesting because it seems to, for me, they're attacking RFK because they know what he's bringing to the table, which is getting us back, getting MAHA, right? Making America healthy again. And for me, we use Kerrygold butter, not trying to put a company out there, but it's grass-fed natural butter. And that's what my family uses. And we feel good about that.
Why does your family consume butter? What do you think are the benefits of consuming butter?
Well, when you take a look at first of all, it's natural, right? It's grass-fed. No,